At the green light over there. It is Christmas season as we speak. Thank you for joining me once again. As the last time I tried streaming, it did end a little abruptly. I have no idea what happened with that, but we are back now. And of course, after I was streaming, I had to go out and shovel some snow, so that also took some time. But I gave the phone a chance to recharge some battery here. Like I said, absolutely no idea why the stream. Everything's just been kind of giving me a problem over here from the laptop to the phone. I gotta get all new kinds of equipment. Right now, that's not really in the budget though. So we are just trying to make do with what we have. So once again, this is our Friday the 13th live stream. Only makes sense to a watch along of the last drive-in with Joe Bob here on Friday the 13th, the beginning to all of the last drive-in Christmas specials with Joe Bob. This is Joe Bob's Red Christmas. Joe Bob is going to be watching 3 movies on this episode. He is watching Black Christmas, the original, Jack Frost, and Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. So thank you once again here for joining me on Friday the 13th. It is December 13th, 2024. We are approaching the Christmas season. Christmas coming up. After today, I'm thinking we'll do another live stream tomorrow. So thank you once again for joining me. I'm basically just going to restart the entire episode. You guys didn't miss much, thankfully. Like I said, I have no idea why it ended like that last time. We're going to mute the audio there until the episode begins. Camera looks okay. Right around the second episode when Joe Bob goes into talking about the movie Jack Frost, I'm most likely going to have to put this on the charger because these episodes are going to be a little bit longer. I know the first one where he talks about the original Black Christmas and then the final one, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. I think those are both over 50 minutes each for those episodes. So I just want to make sure our battery percentage is good. Obviously, I didn't take a community guideline strike or anything, or I wouldn't be able to live stream right now. Like I said, I have absolutely no idea why the last stream shut down like that, but all of my technical equipment has just been giving me difficulties recently. Everything from the laptop to the phone. We definitely got to get some new gear here soon. Eventually, it's most likely going to start with the phone, I think, because the phone has been kind of shaky the last couple months. I cannot lie. The laptop, I think, is still kicking. Lenovo brand, good on ya. But like I said, everybody, this is Friday the 13th, our first Christmas special watch along with Joe Bob here on the channel. Very happy to have this. As many of you all know, it is a great pleasure of mine to watch horror movies during the Christmas season. I love Christmas horror themed movies, and for me, I've always wanted to direct and write a Christmas slasher horror movie. So this is very nice to have the opportunity to hang out with you guys, watch some Joe Bob, have some laughs. Like I said, we're just going to restart the episode from previously because you guys didn't miss much of anything. Don't know why the stream shut down abruptly like that, but we'll keep an eye on it this time for sure. And this is Joe Bob's Red Christmas from Season 6, 2019 of The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. And it's kind of ironic, too, that the first movie that he's talking about is Black Christmas, the original, because he also mentions in this episode how right around the time when they did this episode of The Last Drive-In, they did a remake to the remake of Black Christmas, which came out on Friday the 13th in 2019. This is Friday the 13th, 2024, and now we are watching Joe Bob talk about the original Black Christmas. So like I said, sometimes with me, things just always come full circle.
Okay, here we are, ruining Christmas again. You know why we do that, though? so that none of you go off the deep end and start killing your relatives. You know, everybody's supposed to be so gall darn happy at Christmas that it's a recipe for suicide, homicide, fratricide, matricide, brothercide, sistercide, neighborside. Yeah, I got your jingle bells right here, pal. You know, so in order to avoid mayhem on the Yule, which now that I think about it, wouldn't be a bad movie title. Mayhem on the Yule, starring Clint Howard as an elf with an Uzi. The world's biggest Clint Howard fan. In order to avoid that, we always
Darcy, the lovely male girl,
violence to keep a lid on it. Now we're going to watch Black Christmas tonight, and the original one. Darcy, the male girl, has been agitating for this for a long time. You don't like it. You didn't like it last year when we did the 4-movie Phantasm Marathon.
Those are not Christmas movies.
Well, they had the same spirit as Christmas movies, is what we thought.
The fans want to see Christmas horror. I want to see Christmas horror.
And you always do what the people want because you're chest deep in that social media, you know, neck deep in the social media, listening to the pulse of the horror community. Send Darcy your tweets, your Instas, your Facebook posts. She's all over it, but mostly Twitter for the live
Twitter's
feed.
the biggest thing.
If you want to talk to us tonight, that's where you go. You know, the only reason that people didn't totally buy the lineup last year is that we blew the final special effect. We had that Phantasm flying silver ball, and it was supposed to embed in my forehead and spew blood all over you.
Oh man, how cool would that have been?
But instead, it just stuck in my hat, you know, not scary. You know, we should impale you on some reindeer antlers.
Oh man, I've actually tried that cosplay a couple of times. I can never get to
that original scene from Silent Night.
With the antlers? Yeah, I can't get it.
The Linnea Quigley scene is what we're talking about, where I haven't watched it in a while, but doesn't she get dropped down the chimney or something and ends up with antlers through her boobs?
No, not
Well, that's the way I remembered it. Well, anyway, that's what we should do tonight, though. Antlers through your boobs or wherever she was impaled. Same thing as from that movie.
I'm so down.
Okay. Well, we got a triple feature, so I'll talk to you about that during the movie. But have you got Linnea Quigley, like, sexy wardrobe?
Pretty sure I can come up with something.
All right. Of course you do. You know, I should mention this, too. Blumhouse released the Black Christmas remake today. Yeah, I mean, it's not a remake. It's a total redo. It has practically nothing to do with the original. But I think the only reason they did it is they knew we would be doing Black Christmas on Friday the 13th. They were piggybacking on our publicity. You know,
you're right.
They have Black Christmas. We have Black Christmas. It's dueling Black Christmases. But they don't have a male girl.
All be together Black Christmas?
Yeah. But I wanted to talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer first. Because I know you're in great Black Christmas cosplay, by the way.
Thank you.
You are Black Christmas.
Exactly.
Because you're Christmassy and you got all the black, you know.
Plus,
and those are killer boots, you know. But did you ever watch the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special when you were a kid?
I mean, I still watch it every year now.
Oh, okay. Then you probably know about this article that came out in the Huffington Post that has shown us the racism and homophobia and child abuse and bullying and sexism and exploitation of the disabled that lie at the bigoted heart of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Christmas special.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I actually don't think the article goes far enough. I think it's time we got rid of every holiday tradition that originated in the dark ages of a united, grievance-free country. But Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, as I will shortly prove, is not just outdated. It's a communist attempt to turn our children into substance-abusing sex slaves. I think we should just junk that show, send it to the graveyard of 60s television, get rid of Gene Autry. You know, let's face it, once that song gets into your head, you can't get that song out for days. And replace it with either the Chuck Berry version of the song, you know, Santa make him hurry, tell him he can take the freeway down, you know, or the Joe Diffie version, Leroy the Redneck Reindeer. You know that one? You know, it tells the story of the reindeer who drives to the North Pole in his pickup wearing overalls and a John Deere cap.
I've heard that one.
You've heard it? Okay. Because the main advantage of both of those songs is right out of the chute, they get rid of the whole red nose thing. So, do you know the origin of the whole red-nosed reindeer story? The red-nosed reindeer was written by a Chicago copywriter named Robert May as a children's book for a Montgomery Ward Christmas giveaway in 1939. Now, think about it.
Okay.
1939. What happened in 1939? The Soviet Union invaded Poland after signing a non-aggression pact with Hitler. A red nose? Hello? Wake up, people. Did anybody check Robert May's party affiliations? Yeah, let the red reindeer take over. Let's do things differently this year. You know, sure, there are 9 reindeer pulling the sleigh, but all the shots are being called by the dictator reindeer, the strong man who solves all our problems for us. And then there's the fact that Alcoholics Anonymous had recently been founded in Akron, Ohio, by Bill Wilson and Bob Smith, 2 apparently hopeless drunks, who no doubt had the famous red whiskey nose popularized by W.C. Fields. Coincidence? I think not. We know what makes a nose glow, don't we? You know, and it's not rosacea, and it's not acne, and it's not the flu. The guy was a writer. Obviously, he was a drinker, if he was a writer. It was one of those secret handshake things that people in 12-step programs do so they'll recognize one another at the West Hollywood breakfast meeting or wherever they go. It's obviously a subliminal entrenched in the story so that the song says, let the drunk speak. Listen to the drunk, you know, in a way that will be accepted by the youth of our nation. Would that it stop there? I now ask a simple question. What the fuck are reindeer games? Has anyone ever seen a reindeer playing a game? I suppose we could ask a Laplander, but I'm guessing no. You know, all those horns, all those hooves, the mixing of genders, the supple skin of the sleek does, the implied sadomasochism when they lock their antlers together and toss each other around. Rudolph is obviously being told he's not kinky enough for the big leagues, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. The story is an elaborate grooming technique, full of hints of forbidden pleasures that because you're socially awkward and wear glasses, you're not allowed to experience until Santa tells you how much he loves your nose. Now, need I stop here to review how many times in the great literary works of history the nose has been used as a substitute for another male appendage, not to mention the persistent belief that a prominent nose or a hook nose or a protruding nose or any kind of large nose has the same meaning in certain circles as big feet. Do you see where Santa is going with this? Do you see where Robert May was going with it? Do you see where network television was going with it? I'm going to go ahead and say it. They embedded actual pedophilia in the DNA of our Christmas celebration. They're not just toys, are they? They're misfit toys. They're broken. They're damaged. They're misshapen. They're weird in one way or another. But in the hands of Santa, they become wondrous, transformative treasures that have found their place in the universe. Just like you, little Rudolph, or Freddie, or Timmy, or Billy Boy. You need Santa to reshape you. Remember the outcast elf in the story? Why does the outcast elf want to be a dentist? Who gave him that oral fixation, all right? I can't even go on with this. It leads us to places that would shock sex offenders serving life sentences in the Texas Department of Corrections, you know. But I have one last question. What about Bumble the Abominable Snow Monster? If you'll recall, Bumble's goal is to eat Rudolph's entire family, but he's foiled by Hermie, the would-be dentist, who extracts all his sharp teeth. Who is Bumble really, and what does he represent? Bumble is huge, and Bumble is white. Bumble obviously exemplifies the decadent, entitled, bullying Caucasian race, attempting to destroy diversity and inclusion in this nation, especially the inclusion of losers like Rudolph and Hermie, because Rudolph's big feet are a threat to the established social order, and Hermie's bizarre fixations on the mouth are destructive to the future of civilization. So the extraction of Bumble's teeth is a revolutionary social message, and that message is, shut up, white guy. The Reds are in charge now. We're going to run Santa down the freeway and ride over your sorry ass. 54 years of CBS promoting communist organizational techniques for the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Okay, I said it. I'm disgusted.
Oh, dude.
Thank God we finally noticed.
That was one of your more bizarre rants.
Well, it's Christmas. We got to step it up at Christmas.
It work?
But I'm serious about the antlers.
So am I.
All right, Yuki Nakamura, ladies and gentlemen, the Tokyo Cowboy, our set designer, our property master. Yuki, I need some very sharp reindeer antlers.
Reindeer antlers?
Yeah. Do they have reindeer in Japan? They have reindeer in Japan, right?
Yes, tonakai.
What?
Japanese reindeer, tonakai.
Okay. Well, get me some giant sharp tonakai reindeer antlers and mount them on something so we can impale Darcy for the big closing effect of the Christmas special.
Will do.
Okay. No turning back now, Darcy, because
so
Yuki's
ready.
on the job.
Heck yeah.
At the end of the Red Christmas special, it's now official. Darcy will be impaled on reindeer antlers. All right, so we should probably talk about the movie, don't you think so?
Might be a good idea.
So Black Christmas. I bet half our audience has already seen this movie. This is one of the most requested titles that we have. Okay, so the main thing about this movie is the thing we can't talk about because it's the ending, and we don't do that on this show. But you know how in film class we always have some professors of film or filmmakers watching because I get their emails. But in film class, they always teach Orson Welles. They're crazy about Orson Welles. And they tell you one of the greatest single shots in all of film history is the opening shot of A Touch of Evil, because the camera moves for 3.5 minutes in a single take. Okay, very first shot of the movie. Well, in this movie, the last shot inside the house is a single take with a moving camera, and it goes on for 3 minutes, and it's a difficult shot because this is before the Steadicam was invented, and that shot is the whole key to understanding the movie. I'm exaggerating. It actually goes on for almost 3 minutes, but then there's a shocking image, and then there's another 2-minute pan, so it's actually kind of a 5-minute shot. But the reason I'm talking about it is don't think the movie's over before it's over. If you have not seen this movie before, do not make the mistake of thinking that just because the credit crawl has started, the movie is over. All right, a lot of claims are made for this movie. They say it's the first slasher film, 1974. Not really. First of all, there's not that much slashing in it. Secondly, when people say slasher, what they normally mean is deranged serial killer. That's what they all have in common, right? So any movie where you have one guy killing everybody, like, could technically be called a slasher film. And by that definition, it is a slasher. But it can't possibly be the first one because earlier that same year, 1974, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was released. So if anybody did the first slasher, Tobe Hooper did. Some people say Halloween is the first slasher film. That's crazy. That wasn't until 1978. But isn't Psycho a slasher film? Isn't Blood Feast a slasher film from the early 60s? Mario Bava made Bay of Blood 3 years before this movie. So my reaction to all of this is, who cares? Stop spending so much time on the internet, okay? All right, if you live in Canada and you're a film nerd, you say Black Christmas is the beginning of Canadian horror. This is the foundation movie of all Canadian horror. This is a landmark film that launched the golden age of Canadian horror. Like Canadian horror is a thing. Have you ever once in your life called somebody up and said, come on over to the trailer house, we're going to binge watch some Canadian horror tonight?
Yeah.
No, you have? Oh, no, come on. Italian horror, yes. Canadian horror? Come on, really? I don't, all right.
Quality Canadian horror. But
All right. My Bloody Valentine, I guess you watched. That's another Canadian horror film. Is that one you watched? All right, they're always proud of that one. I don't think anybody who's ever watched My Bloody Valentine, though, has said, man, do they make great horror north of the border? It's class of 1984, same thing, And what makes this especially ridiculous is that when they do make horror movies in Canada, they always try to disguise the fact they were made in Canada. Because count the number of scenes in this film where they show an American flag. They want you to think it's an American film. There's a little tiny American flag sitting everywhere because they want it to get released in America because population of the United States, 325 million. Population of Canada, 36 million. So hello, plus the director of the movie is American, Bob Clark. Now, he's from Fort Lauderdale. He did live in Canada for 12 years. He's actually the only person from Florida I have ever heard of who went to Toronto for work and said, hey man, this is paradise up here. I'm staying. He'd already made 2 movies down in Florida, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and Death Dream, also called Dead of Night, also called The Night Andy Came Home. It's about have you seen it? Death Dream. It's about a Vietnam vet who comes home from the war as a zombie. Very dark film. And this is a very dark film. One thing about Bob Clark, he didn't like to satisfy the audience. He likes to beat up the audience, mess with your expectations. All right, the third claim made for this film, and you'll see it all over the internet, is that Halloween was planned as a sequel to Black Christmas. This is just ridiculous. Bob Clark had a way of telling stories that made everything sound like the original idea came from him. So he was always telling this story of how he met John Carpenter, and Carpenter told him how much he admired Black Christmas, and Bob was flattered, and Carpenter asked him if he thought he would ever do a sequel to it, and Bob said no, he had greater aspirations in the film business. He didn't want to get stuck in horror. And so Carpenter asked him what the plot would be if he did do a sequel. And he said, well, they would have to catch the killer and put him in an asylum for a year, and then he would escape and the killings would start again. And so based on that, Clark implied that Carpenter's script for Halloween was based on Clark's sequel idea for Black Christmas, which doesn't even make sense because Michael Myers in the opening scene of Halloween is 6 years old. So obviously he hadn't been in an asylum for years. Of course, those of you who haven't seen it have no idea what I'm talking about right now because you don't know how Black Christmas ends. And of course, we won't be talking about that because that would piss you off. So, but we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about involving this film. So let's get started with the drive-in totals. We have 8 dead bodies, no breasts.
No breasts.
Which is strange for a sorority house movie. 5 excellent obscene phone calls, breaking and entering, feeding alcohol to minors, throat slicing, matron on a meat hook, Christmas ornament bashing, crystal spike plunging, multiple clueless cops, grand piano destruction, gratuitous Christmas caroling, gratuitous snowball assault, gratuitous fellatio prank, cellophane foo, fire poker foo, shaky cam foo, asthma foo, with Driving Academy Award nominations for Olivia Hussey as the pregnant sorority sister, Margot Kidder as the alcoholic foul-mouthed sorority sister, Andrea Martin as the frizzy-haired sorority sister, Marion Waldman as the whiskey-chugging comic relief house mother, Keir DeLay as the emotionally fragile concert pianist boyfriend with a turtleneck and a mullet, and Bob Clark, the director, for doing it his own way. 3 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
3 stars.
They're going to come after me. I know they're going to come after me for that 3-star rating. There have been 4, count them, 4 documentaries devoted to this one film. And each documentary makes more claims for the movie than the one before. It's the movie that made Halloween possible. It's the movie that invented the killer point of view camera. It's the movie that invented the movie camera. The movie that invented film. There was no film before this movie. Didn't Hitchcock make a whole movie that was 100% POV camera? Rope, right? Rope. Point of view camera was not exactly a new thing in 1974. Oh yeah, the movie that was the first to show women as they really are, talking about sex and abortions with the same freedom and independence as men, which is idiotic because the movie came out in 1974. We'd had 7 years since the Summer of Love in San Francisco. Is someone under the impression that women were shy about sex or language during those years? Jeez. Black Christmas, the movie that invented Christmas. There was no Christmas before Black Christmas. I like the movie, but let's get a grip, people.
Okay, and that is pretty much where we ended the last stream, so we are all caught up now, thankfully. Show you what I'm sipping on here, a little bit of Jones Blueberry Soda. And this is pretty much exactly like the Fallout Nuka Quantum. I also have a bottle of that laying around here somewhere. Right here, actually. Never been opened. Obviously, just save it as a little bit of a showpiece. But there's my Nuka Quantum from Jones. And here is the blueberry soda from Jones, cane sugar soda. So if you ever had blueberry soda before, it's all right. But a couple things I want to talk about before we continue the episode. Cheers. Salute to all my Italians, all my Irishmen out there. So I know we're doing this watch along a little bit earlier. That is for a reason. One, because of all the technical difficulties I've been having with things like my phone, things like my laptop. It's probably better for us to just get these out of the way as early as we can. So that's why we're doing these watch alongs a little bit earlier. Second, I recently said that I would be having some more interviews coming up with these labor unions. And unfortunately, when I went the other day, the one place for bricklayers literally just had me fill out an application and then hand it in. And the guy literally said, hey, they could either call you or they couldn't call you. Nothing's guaranteed, and they don't even have interviews starting till the end of January. So since Joe Bob likes to rant, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant myself. I am just sick and tired of waiting around for other people to fucking make the decision for me. I'm the type of person I like to just get up and go and fucking do things myself if I have to. So waiting on other people is not in my fundamentals. I don't play that fucking game where people are like, well, if we want to call you, we'll give you a call, and if we don't, then they don't. Fuck that. Whatever happened to the American dream where you could just decide to do something, go out, fill out an application, and people would take a shot on you? We don't live in those times anymore, unfortunately. So I went to the bricklaying place. Guy told me it could or it couldn't happen if they want to decide to bring me in for an interview. And then I literally, after that, went to the steam fitters place, and they just handed me an application and then sent me out the door. So that all very much sucked. And then I was so pissed off after all that, I just said, you know what, fuck it. I'm signing myself up for welding classes. So I will be starting welding classes in January next month. So that's kind of why we're getting this all out of the way now. I really don't know how much free time I'm going to have coming up for the next year, or how available I'm going to be to do, watch-alongs and hang out with you guys like this. So that's kind of why it's important to me that we kind of finish the season out on a good note and just enjoy the with Joe Bob. We have, I believe, another 5 after this one. So for the remainder of the Christmas months, we will be watching the Christmas specials. And like I said, it's really cool to me to have these horror kind of Christmas themed specials, because it's always been my dream to write and direct a horror Christmas slasher movie. So what better way to start than on Friday the 13th and finally get the episodes out now. So it is Friday the 13th here on December 13th, 2024. And like I said, around the second episode, when we start out with Joe Bob talking about Jack Frost, I am going to put the phone on the charger, so it might look a little bit unstationary from where it is right now. But we'll take it off for the third episode. Like I said, I kind of expect this to be about a 2.5, maybe 3 hour stream. So don't want to make it too long with my chit chat, but we will get back into the watch along now.
And so it begins with the first victim of the point of view camera. The movie starts out with that extended subjective camera shot where the killer is climbing up the trellis on the outside of the sorority house. And there was no Steadicam. The Steadicam is a couple years away. And so the camera operator, Bert Dunk, built a special body brace that had a hinge and a safety belt on it and a pad down the front and a device so that he could tilt the camera up and down while it was mounted on his head, so that he could crawl up trellises and move up and down staircases and show the point of view of the killer. Now, I don't think it was the first time a movie used a subjective camera to show the killer's point of view, but it was the most ambitious use of that device up till that time. And if John Carpenter stole anything, that's what he stole. By the time Halloween came out 4 years later, they had a better camera. It was easier to do. They had a gyroscope. But think about it. The one thing you cannot reveal in a horror film is who's doing the killing. You see shadows, you see shapes, most horror films. So instead, you turn the camera around and you show everything through the killer's eyes. Now it's almost a cliche. They do it so often, but not so much in 1974. Probably the most recognizable face in the cast today is Margot Kidder as the foul-mouthed, frequently drunk sorority sister. But this was long before she broke out in Superman as Lois Lane. So she was just hired because she had been in Brian De Palma's Sisters. I think she was Brian De Palma's girlfriend at the time. And she was available, and she was Canadian. She grew up in Yellowknife in the frozen tundra of northern Canada, and they were trying to use as many Canadians as possible to get those Canadian tax credits. And as we know, Margot Kidder would eventually have one of the saddest movie star lives ever, full of drugs, alcohol, bankruptcy, 2 terrible car accidents, overdoses, homelessness, paranoia, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and eventually suicide. But she was passionate and outgoing and well known to a lot of people in Hollywood at this time in her life, even though she'd done only a few very tiny roles. The producer remembers that when she was picked up every morning to go to the set, she was kind of disheveled and hungover. And then she mostly cracked jokes on the set, but she talked very seriously about how she was determined to marry Paul McCartney. So I don't know. She didn't really like horror films. Her other great horror role, the Amityville Horror, she called that movie a piece of shit. Literally, that's a quote, piece of shit. And the frizzy-haired sorority sister is played by Andrea Martin, who was a last-minute replacement for Gilda Radner. Andrea was a veteran in Toronto, which is where this was filmed, and she's still famous today as a Broadway stage actress, winner of Tony Awards, has a huge number of both film and stage roles. All right, what do we know about the killer thus far? He likes cellophane, he's pretty damn physically fit, like a man, a woman, a little boy, when he makes obscene phone calls that are so intriguing that the whole sorority house likes to listen to them as a group. Who does that? Okay, roll the film. But you know, I have a question. I have trouble understanding all the words in the obscene phone calls. And I would like to understand all the words in the obscene phone calls. So, does Billy say, I want to lick your pink cunt? Or does he say, I want to lick your pink cunt? Because that seems like an important plot point, you know, especially if you're an FBI profile or something, because pink cunt, lonely guy, possible pedophile, you know, pink cunt hates women, right? Might like chubby girls, you know? Would you agree? Anybody? I'm quoting the movie, or I think I'm quoting the movie. Maybe he's saying pimple, you know, like, I want to lick your pimple, which would be in a way even grosser, but okay, I'll stop.
Now, one thing I do want to mention, I do have an entire watch-along to the original Black Christmas on my channel. I believe last year it was actually one of my most watched videos when I released that, which I'm still very much proud of because it's still an idea that I want to do in the future. Similar to how we do the watch-alongs here. Kind of like how Joe Bob does with The Last Drive-In and Monster Vision, almost with my own little twist on it. It's been hard to do those ideas because of the copyright restrictions on YouTube and whatnot. So maybe at some point in the future, I'll be able to do that as well. But I do want to mention, I love the original Black Christmas, and I love the 2006 remake as well. I thought the 2006 remake was pretty solid for it being a remake, especially to the original Black Christmas. Not an easy follow-up movie to do, but I think they both stand to the test of time. As for the 2019 Black Christmas, not really a fan of that one. That one is pretty much out of the conversation for me entirely. But the original Black Christmas, the movie is still on my channel. So if anybody wants to check that out, we did a watch along to that, I believe, last year. Still one of my most watched videos on the channel. And now, this year, we're getting to watch Joe Bob talk about the movie itself.
McGrath, who plays the cop who doesn't know what fellatio is, said at a convention that he really was not sure what it meant in real life. And so he decided just not to ask the director what it meant and play the scene that way. I think it's some indication of how Latin has declined in the Canadian schools, or maybe just that Doug doesn't pay close attention. But at another convention, John Saxon, who plays the police lieutenant, said he had a discussion with the director, Bob Clark, about the proper pronunciation. Because John thought it should be fellatio, which is probably the way they say it in Italy, where Latin was invented. But John is Italian, which doesn't make sense because the name Saxon would imply that he's Saxon. So what the fuck is going on there? But can there really be this much ignorance about fellating in general in a film made in 1974? Anyway, we got a lot of drunkenness and rage in this movie. We got a drunk house mother. We've got random kids who beam Mr. Harrison in the head with a hard snowball. We got a music student who destroys a grand piano with a mic stand. And just when we thought the killer was going to wipe out the sorority house, we've got a missing 13-year-old girl out there somewhere. And that is John Saxon orchestrating the search for the missing girl. And that was the very first scene they shot when they made the movie. And John Saxon had just gotten off a plane from LA 2 hours before they shot that scene. Now, how he got the story, or how he got the role, is a sad story. But it's Christmas. And that's when we tell sad stories. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the sad story. The police lieutenant was supposed to be played by the legendary Edmund O'Brien. Edmund O'Brien accepted the part, flew to Toronto to start filming 2 days before the start of production. But Bob Clark and the producer met his plane the night he arrived, and he came off the plane in a wheelchair. But he then stood up, and they thought, okay, well, he's fine. He's just a little weak. But then it took him 45 minutes to put on his coat. They were going out to dinner. So halfway through the dinner, he says, I have to go up to my room, because he thought he was in his hotel, but he was not in his hotel. He was in a restaurant. He also didn't know what city he was in. He couldn't remember Toronto. It was obvious he was having frequent memory lapses. It was the beginning of Alzheimer's disease, and so they had to tell him that he couldn't do the part, especially since the first night of shooting was going to be in freezing cold weather, and he just seemed too frail for it. So when they told him, he immediately burst into tears. He was devastated. He was trying to hold it together, he said. He begged them. He said he could remember enough lines to do the part. And this was just 2 days before the beginning of principal photography. But fortunately, John Saxon was available. He was willing to fly to Canada on a moment's notice. So from the time John Saxon got the call until the time he was actually doing a scene was just 48 hours. But the story gets sadder than that. Edmund O'Brien had a 9-year-old son. And the 9-year-old boy had seen his dad off from the LA airport, and he was telling him, I know you can do it, Dad. You're going to do great in this part, because apparently the kid kind of sensed something was wrong. He was rooting for his dad. So we now have this picture of the young boy pushing his dad's wheelchair to the gate because he wants his dad to succeed and be happy and get what he wants. And then Edmund O'Brien has to go home and tell the kid he got fired. Awful story. Anyway. This is not one of my favorite John Saxon roles, but he's been in everything from Running Wild, one of those wild youth movies from the 50s, to Mario Bava's Evil Eye, to Blood Beast from Outer Space, and he's probably best known as Roper in Bruce Lee's great Enter the Dragon, which he made right before doing this movie. He's been in everything. Okay, here's how Black Christmas happened. Started out as a script written by a Canadian named Roy Moore called The Babysitter, or in some accounts, The Babysitter Murders. Roy worked at the Canadian broadcast system, and he wrote a story based on an urban legend called The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. Now, this is a story that impressionable teenage girls used to tell each other when they were babysitting about getting calls from a weird voice who says, check the children, and then hangs up. You can read various versions of the story on the internet. It is very creepy. Well, Bob Clark was intrigued by the script, but he started making changes to it. He changed the title to Stop Me. Okay, Stop Me is what the Illinois serial killer William Hirons used to write on the mirror with lipstick at his crime scenes. Does anybody remember William Hirons? He's not one of the more famous serial killers, but they called him the Lipstick Killer. And actually, now that I think about it, Bob Clark was a film buff. He would have known about the Lipstick Killer from that 1956 Fritz Lang film, While the City Sleeps, which was based on a book about Hirons. Vincent Price was in that movie. And you know who played the Lipstick Killer in the movie? Drew Barrymore's father, John Drew Barrymore. Can anybody keep the Barrymore straight? I think you have to say all the names. John Drew Barrymore. Anyway. All right, major digression. So, Bob Clark uses the title Stop Me. See, I know where I am at all times. I can always go back. And he changed the setting from babysitters to a sorority house because he wanted to get rid of the children in the story. And he changed quite a few other things as well. He added the Margot Kidder character. He added the alcoholic house mom. He incorporated elements from a series of real murders that had occurred around Christmas time in the Westmount section of Montreal. I was just there, as a matter of fact, in the Westmount section of Montreal, because that's where you have to go to get the famous bagels. You know, part of the experience is they're mean to you when you ask for a bagel. You know, they're sullen, like, yeah, maybe you can have this bagel if you don't act like a stupid American. Stand over there. Okay, that's a digression within a digression. But I think the serial killer in Westmount possibly could have worked at the bagel place. They were that mean. So anyway, the real reason this movie would seem to be linked to Halloween is that the original title of Halloween was The Babysitter Murders, because they were working from the same urban legend. That was actually the specific instruction that the producer, Irwin Yablans, gave to John Carpenter. It had to be about murdered babysitters, therefore giving rise to another urban legend that Halloween is a sequel to Black Christmas. Okay, so once he gets his script ready and he gets funded for a $641,000 budget, which included some government money. I actually heard him refer to his budget as $400,000, so I think the 641 was Canadian dollars. But he starts looking around for who to cast as the lead sorority girl, and he decides to make an offer to Olivia Hussey, who was a huge star at the time, ever since she made her debut at age 15 as Juliet in Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet. Very serious actress, worked on the London stage a lot, always did high-toned movies like Death on the Nile, Last Days of Pompeii, Lost Horizon, Ivanhoe. In other words, about the last person you would think would want to go to Toronto in the middle of winter and make a cheap horror movie. Fortunately for Bob Clark, Olivia Hussey frequently consulted psychics about what she should do with her life. And one of those psychics told her that she was going to Canada for the first time, and she was going to make a movie that would make a great deal of money. And this happened a couple of days before her agent sent her the script for Black Christmas. So she said yes. And because she said yes, other big stars said yes. Keir Dullea had starred in 2001, A Space Odyssey. He was still known for that. And so when he was sent the script, they told him he'd be opposite Olivia Hussey, and he said yes right away. And they didn't care about his age either. I think he may have set the record for older actors playing college students. He was 38, but almost all his scenes are with Olivia Hussey as Jess. All right, way too much information. You know, let's get back to the flick. Bob Clark. Bob had one of the strangest careers in the history of film in terms of what kind of movies he made. His most financially successful film was Porky's, you know, but he also made the beloved Christmas classic, A Christmas Story, you know. He made Murder by Decree with Christopher Plummer and James Mason. He made Tribute with Jack Lemmon. You know, he actually worked with some of the biggest stars in the world. And then he also made two of the worst movies in history, Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2, and Rhinestone. Sly Stallone goes to Nashville, becomes a singer, and falls in love with Dolly Parton. Rocky Goes Country. It still gives me chills. You know, that movie will actually destroy part of your cerebral cortex. It just withers away a little bit every time Sly sings. Keir Dullea as the unhinged Peter seething about his unborn baby. You know, that's not a very good candidate for a murder suspect, because I don't think a serial killer would be pro-life, you know? and we know Olivia Hussey is the final girl, course, this was many years before the rules of Final Girl were established, but we know she's the star, and she's the one in constant mortal danger, and so it would be a stretch to think that Keir Delay would kill her because he would have to kill his baby at the same time. Although he did look crazy when he destroyed that grand piano. All right, some technical background things. There are quite a few obscene phone calls in this movie, as you've noticed, and they all have multiple voices, multiple sounds. They're very complicated obscene phone calls. Those calls were mostly voiced by Nick Mancuso, who stood on his head while he was doing them in order to compress his thorax. I could not make that up, could I? And then some of the grossest lines were added by Bob Clark himself, so his voice is on there too. And then there are 3 other actors and actresses on there, and then the voices were distorted in post-production. Now, Bob Clark claimed to have a whole detailed backstory for Billy, the caller. And I say claim because Bob claimed a lot of things and could be a little bit of an exaggerator. But the way he tells it is that Billy was abused as a kid, so he abused his sister and killed his parents, and his voices are both himself and his dead sister Agnes. But the ultimate idea is that there's a confusion inside Billy, multiple personalities, violence competing against itself. So Nick Mancuso is the voice of Billy. It's me, Billy. The screaming and yelling part is Bob Clark. And then the other interesting thing about the soundtrack is the musical score by Carl Zittrer. Not much music in it. He used things like clocks and toned wind, whatever that is. He put forks, combs, and knives next to the strings of an upright piano so he would get weird sounds. He said he got the creepiest sounds from those little shrimp forks. And then when he played back the so-called music, that he would do it on a reel-to-reel tape so that he could put his hands on the tape and manually slow it down and distort it, creating what some think is a creepy effect and some think is just annoying. But he got the idea of the forks, combs, and knives from John Cage. You guys know who John Cage is? Avant-garde composer. If you ever get invited to a John Cage concert, stay home. By the way, they were going to show this movie on NBC in January of 1978 as a movie of the week, but 2 weeks before it was scheduled, Ted Bundy broke into a Florida State University sorority house and killed 2 of the girls and assaulted 3 more of them. So they pulled it off the schedule and they held it back for a few months and changed the name of it on TV to Stranger in the House. It was Elvis Presley's favorite movie. Steve Martin also saw it 27 times. Has a strange attraction for a lot of people. But at its first release, it was a total flop. Warner Brothers changed the title from Black Christmas to Silent Night, Evil Night, because they were afraid that the word black would make people think it was a black exploitation movie. Warner Brothers also hated the ending. They wanted Bob Clark to change the ending, but he refused. The reviews were horrible. The video was out of print for a decade. But there's this strange thing that happens when an internet campaign brings a movie back into the public consciousness. The fact that it failed when it was first released makes it a forgotten gem. They bring me these movies all the time at Shudder. Have you seen this one, Joe Bob? It's a neglected classic. And what they mean is a film from the 70s or 80s that bombed at the box office, or in some cases never got released at all. And they say, Joe Bob, the movie was so lame it never got distribution. They always say, forgotten gem. Blu-ray release coming up, Arrow Video, because they know people go crazy for that idea. What? A forgotten movie? Okay, now, Black Christmas is not a forgotten gem because it was never totally forgotten, but the cult following didn't happen until around the year 2004. It was just gathering steam when Bob Clark sadly got killed in a car crash on the Pacific Coast Highway when a drunk driver crossed the center line, hit him head on. And his 21-year-old son was in the car at the same time and also died. Another really sad story. But it's Christmas, and that's the time for sad stories, at least on the last drive. And here comes Darcy, the mail girl. And Darcy, do you have any sad stories?
I mean, who doesn't? But I don't dwell on them.
All right. Well, we're gonna dwell on them tonight. We're gonna tell sad Christmas stories, and then we're gonna hire a homeless guy to sing "Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire," and everybody's gonna cry because that's the go-to song during Christmas season on the New York City subways. You know, you get a lot of money for "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." But the main thing we're gonna do later is you're gonna be impaled on reindeer antlers.
I am so ready for that.
You say that now. Okay, back to the movie. Or we'll just make you go to a John Cage concert. That'll make you sad. Have you ever heard of a composition called 4 minutes 33 seconds?
No.
Okay, well that's a John Cage composition where the musicians go up on the stage with their instruments, and then for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, they don't play their instruments. It's just silence.
That sounds awful, and I think you're making it up.
You have obviously never been to the Brooklyn Academy of Music. It's some kind of Zen Buddhist thing. You're supposed to be listening hard for the music that's about to come. But the music never comes. No wonder Carl Zittrer loved John Cage. Foreshadowing.
That's a spoiler.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It kind of is.
All I said is that the music never comes at a John Cage concert. It's getting kind of weird here. So why do I think that leaving Sergeant Nash in charge while he's still trying to figure out the meaning of fellatio is not going to work? Well, the movie did get a whole lot more Christmassy, though, didn't it? That Margot Kidder kill scene, mutilated with a crystal unicorn. That's the only really explicit payoff scene in the whole movie, because Bob Clark prided himself on frustrating the audience. He was even quoted one time as saying, "I don't pay off. I don't do reaction shots. I don't do kill shots." And that's maybe another reason aficionados of horror love the film, because they think less is better. Here on The Last Drive-In, we never think less is better, Mr. Professor, Monsieur Cinema Guy. As I said before, though, Margot Kidder didn't really like the movie. She didn't really take it seriously. She'd only been acting for 5 years, and actually she didn't really take acting seriously. Her first film was a lame Norman Jewison comedy called Gaily Gaily, and then the main reason she got the lead in Sisters is that Brian De Palma was her boyfriend. She tended to fall in love with her fellow artists, and she was very hippie in her lifestyle. She got married to one of her directors, Thomas McGuane, after he directed her in 92 in the Shade. And then she became Lois Lane, and then when she should have been at the peak of her career, she just fell apart. And I have to tell the story because, class, we tell sad stories. That's what we do at Christmas. So she suffered from paranoia her whole life, but that eventually turned into bipolar disorder. She faked her death one time because she believed people were trying to kill her. She ends up homeless on the streets of LA. She was in 2 bad car accidents that left her unemployable and bankrupt. She went through substance abuse and many different kinds of mental disability, and she ended up living in Livingston, Montana, population 7,000. But that makes sense because she was born in the frigid little town of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories of Canada. But she liked pills and she liked alcohol, and she died in May of 2018 of suicide. Okay, now that everyone is in the Christmas spirit, we're back to the brilliant concluding chapters of Black Christmas. Oh, wait, before we do that, it's obvious that from some of the social media that people don't know how big of a star Keir Dullea was, the guy who played Peter. Keir Dullea grew up in Greenwich Village in New York City. He did a lot of summer stock. He trained at the famous Neighborhood Playhouse. He worked in live TV drama in New York City, made his film debut as a scarred gang member in The Hoodlum Priest in 1961, but his breakthrough role was David and Lisa, 1962. I don't think anybody watches David and Lisa much anymore, but that was a famous movie in its day. Keir Dullea was the man who can't stand to be touched. What do you call that? Haphophobia or hafnophobia or Hasselhoffophobia or something. But he's in love with a schizophrenic in the movie. And Keir Dullea also played the Marquis de Sade in the movie De Sade, 1969. He was good, but they had some of the lamest orgy scenes ever filmed. I mean, if you're going to make De Sade, make De Sade. But the high point of his life was as the astronaut Dr. David Bowman in Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. He was the star of that whole thing, top billing. And Kubrick had hired him without an audition based on seeing him in an Otto Preminger movie called Bunny Lake is Missing. That's how famous he was. Hardcore theater guy, dozens of stage credits. Still acting today at the age of 83. And shame on you so-called horror fans who don't know John Saxon. John Saxon was born in 1935, still working today. Grew up in Brooklyn, Italian, studied with Stella Adler, starred in a TV show called Medic.
Was it Nightmare on Elm
Street? At the age of 16. He broke out in a movie called Running Wild as a juvenile delinquent. Frequently worked in Italy because he spoke fluent Italian. He was in Mario Bava's Evil Eye. He starred in Blood Beast from Outer Space. He played a lot of Indians and Mexicans because of his swarthy good looks. He's been in everything. But for my money, his crowning achievement was Roper in Enter the Dragon, 1973. Okay, sometimes I feel like I'm teaching remedial makeup classes here. Are we done? All right. Roll the movie. All right. And I thought the child choir was a nice touch. Oh, come let us adore him while Margot Kidder is getting eviscerated with a crystal unicorn. But we don't have to be sad when we think about Margot Kidder, because this is 1974. She's fine. She's running around barefoot in Topanga Canyon, deliriously happy with Brian De Palma. They were smoking bud and meditating and frolicking. There's lots of frolicking in Topanga Canyon. So blissfully unaware of her future suicide. Sorry, I have to do that because it's Christmas. Okay, so we can finally talk about the ending. But first, let's talk about that image of the eye, Billy's eye, seeming close up, peering through the door. Nobody can remember whose eye that actually was, but it is one of the most memorable moments in the movie. It's a shock scare moment with a very simple image. All right, the ending. I don't feel sorry for Peter, even though he probably got beat to death with a fire poker just for trying to help. And you know why? Because Peter wears a turtleneck and he has a mullet. And he looks dorky in that turtleneck. That is the most complicated red herring in the history of film. So all we know of at the end is the phone continues to ring. No one is there to answer it. No one's there to save Jess because apparently the CSI people in Toronto just tidy everything up. They don't check the attic. They leave her alone even though she's drugged up and damn near catatonic. And as I pointed out at the beginning, that master shot does not get the same credit as the Orson Welles shot at the beginning of Touch of Evil. But here's my problem with the ending, okay? I get it because Billy is still alive. But we don't have any reasonable suspect among the remaining cast members. Claire's daddy? No. Sergeant Nash? Too stupid to carry it off. The lieutenant? That would be an extremely false red herring. We know too much about him. And so you're thinking, okay, so Billy was not shown anywhere in the cast. Well, you can't do that. You can't set up a mystery premise and then make it impossible to resolve it by the evidence that we've seen on the screen. We see nothing of Billy except his eye. We hear nothing of his story except from those distorted, obscene calls. We don't know where he came from. We don't know why he fixated on this sorority house or anything else that would lead us to a conclusion about why this happened. So the whole movie is a red herring. The Sixth Sense, that was a trick, but we had lots of visual clues, lots of sound clues, lots of things said in the dialogue. Having the killer still alive in this movie is saying there never was a killer. It was all a trick on you, the audience. Hence my one-star deduction for what is otherwise a very competent film. Olivia Hussey, despite thinking she was slumming when she made this movie, would go on to make two more horror movies. The original It in 1990, and that same year, Mick Garris's Psycho 4, The Beginning, playing Norma Bates. Now the movie was not a failure, despite what I said before. It was a failure in the United States, but not in Canada and not elsewhere in the world. It grossed about $4 million Canadian on a budget of $620,000. I have a question, though. Who keeps a working dial phone in their attic? So, guys, I know a lot of you are Black Christmas fanatics. So, don't kill me for this, but the movie gets a lot of credit from the horror community simply because it was mishandled by Warner Brothers in the 70s. And by the way, have you ever seen the Warner Brothers poster for the film? If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. Is that the worst tagline in history? I think so. Anyway, I think it could have been much better. I think the logic of it is kind of fuzzy. I think the scenes intended to be humorous are not that humorous and slow down the movie. I think some of the acting is off kilter. I admire Bob Clark for trying to do something different, but he intentionally does not share the backstory with us. We're supposed to piece it together from the phone calls, and that's impossible. Has some great scenes in it, but it's not a classic. It's not the slasher that inspired all the other slashers. I would call it a proto-slasher. It came out before the era of the slashers, and it does have that final shot. It took 8 hours to light the final shot and a great deal of physical effort to actually shoot it. And so it does kind of deliver the eerie effect that's intended. And if you want to talk about it, if you disagree with me, Darcy will be taking your angry tweets and your angry emails. Right, Darcy?
Yeah. Thanks a lot for
Darcy,
that.
the lovely male girl.
You love this film, right?
Not really. I kind of cheerlead for it because the fans really want to see it. And I think Margot Kidder and Olivia Hussey are awesome. Wasn't Olivia Hussey an Ice Cream Man? I'd have to double check that, but that'd be another.
Really?
I think so,
I don't
y'all.
remember that.
Somebody check that. I think so.
But you like the remake better than this one.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to go there. All right.
Sometimes the remakes are better. The remake is like, it's slockier, it's more fun. It has an overt holiday atmosphere and it has people cookies. So
The 2006 remake of Black Christmas can stand its own against the original. The 2019 Black Christmas, that one doesn't even belong in the conversation.
Winner.
And wait a minute, you're not talking about the one that came out today.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
You're talking about the one from 2006.
Yeah, with the people cookies.
Oh, okay.
And the explain who Billy is. That's,
All right.
that's important.
Same guy who made Willard, right?
Yes.
You probably like the remake of the remake even better than the remake.
Very possible.
I'm guessing all the sorority sisters in the Blumhouse remake are feminists with martial arts skills in the new version.
That would be amazing. I hope you're right.
All right. Do we have some mail?
We have so much mail that's actually getting hard to choose the mail for
That's
you.
why I'm making you do it.
All right. Well, thanks again. Okay. So here is a Christmassy letter from Megan Beck of Uniontown, Ohio.
Megan Beck. All right. Your comments about how we all watched the movies together left me smiling ear to ear and maybe a little teary-eyed. I love everybody coming together to enjoy the movies together. There are even group chats so we can all be connected while we watch. Thanks for reminding us how movies are supposed to be enjoyed. Keep doing what you do best. Megan Beck. I do remember Megan's letter, and I think she came to one of the live shows in Cleveland. But Darcy, this is not what we're doing tonight. This is a heartwarming letter. This is a sweet letter from an optimistic person. We are looking for sad, depressing stuff.
Well, actually, I refuse to give you sad, depressing mailbag. But here, there's a couple letters from people who sometimes feel a little left out at Christmas time.
All right, well, that's
This
getting closer.
is Robert Hyatt from Columbus, Ohio.
Robert, I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, but back in the day, your Monster Vision show is what got me hooked on horror. My brother and I weren't part of the in crowd, so when everyone else was out doing whatever high schoolers do, we were hunkered down in our parents' basement watching TV. Coming across your show was a godsend. It gave us something to do, something to look forward to. It sounds corny, but it just didn't feel as lonely when we were watching your show. I still love old horror to this day, and the Shudder Marathon was a blast. I'll be one of the many that will be begging Shudder to make this a recurring thing. But if this is really it, I just want to say thanks, man, for giving these old forgotten movies their time to shine and for giving us all a friend to watch them with. Robert Hyatt. No, Robert, we're going to be doing it a little while longer, at least one more season of shows. So screw the in crowd. Long live the basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what I hate? I hate it when you go to a restaurant during Christmas week and they say, we're closing early to be with our families. Because, you know, there might be some guy standing outside who has no family. That's not a good thing to tell people. Maybe you should have been his family that night because it's fucking Christmas, okay? You know?
All right, well, I knew that was going to get you started, so I have a very special one for you.
Oh my God. With the crystal unicorn.
In honor of Margaret.
You're not going to use that, are you? All right. Dear Joe Bob.
Yeah.
I'm a 20-year-old college student with cerebral palsy, and I wanted to tell you how much your love for horror movies and pop culture means to me as a person. I love spouting out trivia and fun facts and watching these classic horror films with my 10-year-old brother. We even watched Tourist Trap on your marathon together. It was seriously phenomenal. Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Have a terrific day. Drew. When we used to do the World Drive-In Movie Festival, our associated charity was United Cerebral Palsy. It was supposed to be March of Dimes because March of Dimes paid for my medical care when I was a kid because I had polio. But March of Dimes said they did not want to be associated with horror or My Little Horror Festival and exploitation movies. And so they wouldn't take our money. But they have an overlap mission with United Cerebral Palsy in the birth defect department. And so the cerebral palsy people did take our money, and we were proud to have them as partners. So anyway, I met a lot of CP guys, and I can tell you, horror has a huge audience. Well, I was mostly meeting the children with CP, but we have a huge audience among special needs kids.
Yeah, I can tell you that is very much true.
Because you're a special needs mom. So that's right. All right. So we're getting Christmassy now. Thank you, Drew, for hanging with us for these little shows that we do. And if you're watching tonight, please watch to the end. But you might want to warn your 10-year-old brother because Darcy here is going to be brutally impaled.
Brutally?
On reindeer antlers. Yeah, I added brutally. And in fact, Yuki, is
Yes.
Yuki here? You have the reindeer antlers?
Yes, I have antlers.
Yuki Nakamura, ladies and gentlemen, the Tokyo Cowboy, our set designer and device builder and special effects whiz. Do you have the antlers?
Yes, I do. Here.
Oh man, Yuki, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, the stunt with the antlers.
Yes, Yuki, and that stunt with antlers involves Darcy here. Okay?
A little small.
Look at Darcy. Look at Darcy. Okay, look at Darcy. All right? Okay? Look at those antlers. Did those antlers impale Darcy?
Yes.
There are parts of Darcy, these antlers aren't even long enough to go through, okay? You have 2 more movies to get this thing ready, okay? Go into Darcy's dressing room, measure Darcy from all angles, all right? Plan your impalement device accordingly. Do a 360 on Darcy, okay?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Those things couldn't even give you a minor wrist injury.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Okay, we're going to show one of your favorite Christmas movies next. I've heard you talk about this movie.
Ooh, I know what it is.
Okay, somebody told you what it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't just pull costumes out of nowhere.
All right, okay. People have been complaining that the closing joke gets cut off on their streaming feed, so I have to talk fast here.
Okay, and that is going to do it for episode 1 where Joe Bob talks about the original Black Christmas. Next up, the next movie on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, Red Christmas special from Season 6, 2019 is going to be Jack Frost. And no, it is not the Jack Frost movie with Michael Keaton who played Batman. That is a completely opposite Jack Frost movie. This is the horror Christmas movie, Jack Frost, with the killer snowman. Okay? It's a little bit more of a silly Christmas movie, but there was a couple of those around the 80s and the 90s, okay? If you grew up around that time like me, you know it was a silly time for movies, especially horror movies. So we got a killer snowman, Jack Frost. It's on the watch-along tonight of the Red Christmas special on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. We're going to take a 1.5-2-minute break. Okay, when we come back, I'm going to put the phone on the charger because our battery is dying. That's not good. Absolutely just changed the angle up right there. Okay, so we'll take about a 1.5, 2 minute break. When we come back, I'll be putting the phone on the charger. Let me get us all situated here for that. So we will be right back. And Merry Christmas to all. Okay, I have returned. And I should say Happy Friday the 13th and Merry Christmas. Not a lot of seasons or Christmases where we get to enjoy Friday the 13th in the December season, the Christmas season. So happy Friday the 13th and Merry Christmas. Like I said, most likely tomorrow we will be doing another stream of the Christmas specials here on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob. But for this episode, Joe Bob is going to talk about the last two movies, okay? Jack Frost and Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. We just finished with Black Christmas. I'm going to get the charger here for the phone, so that way it doesn't die. My apologies once again for the technical difficulties earlier. Just want to show you guys the room a little bit. As you can see, the red light behind us. We got the green light going on over here. So you can see the red and green for the Christmas season is out in effect. And we also have our Christmas tree over here. I don't know how well you can see that, but we do got a little Christmas tree over there. It's got the snow globe. We light that up at night. I'm pretty sure I can light it up right now and you'll be able to see it. There you go. You can't see it too great from where the camera is pointed at the TV. But maybe when we get a little bit of a decent setup going in the future, you'll be able to see that a little better. But that is our little Christmas tree that we have with the snow globe. So there you go. It's not Christmas without some decorations. You see the red light over there going? We got the red light. We got the green light. There's the chair. And now we are going to set up for the remainder of the stream. Let me get the charger so this phone doesn't die on us out of nowhere. Okay. It might look a little lopsided, but that is intentional. We're going to find a sweet spot here so the phone can just stay put. Well, that doesn't really look too bad. That doesn't really look too bad. You see the little clown mask over there? That honestly does not look too bad. Okay, next up on the last drive-in with Joe Bob, Red Christmas special from season 6, 2019. Really season 1, but they call it season 6 because of all the episodes in different orders. This is, I promise you, from 2019. Now, Joe Bob just finished talking about Black Christmas. Up next, Joe Bob going to talk about the movie Jack Frost. Not the Jack Frost with Michael Keaton who played Batman. Not that Jack Frost. This is the Jack Frost with the killer snowman. Okay? Who goes around fucking babes in the shower. That Jack Frost movie.
Okay, well, normally I don't give away the programming in advance. Everything is supposed to be a surprise on the last drive-in and on Joe Bob's Red Christmas. But now that Black Christmas is behind us, the rest of the evening is going to be all about Christmas cheer and healing and love and friendship. And yeah, we do have a few murders and impalements and torture scenes coming up. But other than that, my point being that I've invited all the other horror hosts in America to join me for a Christmas celebration here at the end of the year. And since there aren't as many of us as there used to be, I'm especially thrilled the queen of them all will be dropping by. And the most famous male horror host, probably because he's been doing it for 50 years. How long has he been on the air, Austin? More than 50 years, maybe. And longer than me, anyhow. That's a long time. And then we're also bringing in some contemporary horror hosts and some local horror hosts, and we're all going to kick back some eggnog and trade horror host secrets and bring the drive-in mutants together in unity.
Aw, that might be the sweetest speech I've ever heard you make.
I know, right? What's wrong with me?
Are we really doing that?
Yeah, starting at the very first break of this next movie, our main guest will be right here with me, and she is very, very famous.
Oh my god. A female horror host who's very famous? I wonder who it could be.
I can't tell you.
Ooh, I'm dying of suspense.
And then, of course, we got the big closer. When you are brutally impaled on razor-sharp reindeer antlers.
Oh, now they're razor sharp?
Yeah, well, they may not be razor-sharp. They may just be enormous, like moose antlers or something. Yuki is finding the most badass antlers available.
Am I going to need special wardrobe for that?
I think you need to be naked. I mean, wasn't Linnea Quigley naked in Silent Night, Deadly Night, Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No?
She had shorts on.
Oh, okay. Just half naked. Well,
Yeah.
we'll have somebody come in and advise you on your wardrobe for that.
Maybe we should have done that a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, but first we have a deranged mutant killer snowman movie. And not just any psycho snowman movie, the best psycho snowman movie, actually the only psycho snowman movie, Jack Frost.
Yay!
You've been a long-time champion of Jack Frost.
Yes, I
know.
love Jack Frost.
Thank God there are no Santa Clauses in this movie, so no need for any Santa hats on the last drive-in. I'm not putting on a Santa hat again this year.
If I can get impaled by giant antlers, you can put on a Santa hat.
All right, we'll talk about that later. Right now we're going to get nasty with a snowman.
I'm so down for that.
Jack Frost is the story of what happens when a sadistic, cannibalistic serial killer on his way to the execution chamber gets mangled into a gelatinous mess when his prison transport vehicle crashes into a truck carrying a top-secret experimental DNA scrambler. And since it's Christmas time in Colorado, it gets all mixed up with the thick snow on the ground, and pretty soon we got a giant snowman with revenge on his mind. Sure, we've seen it before, but have we seen it with cleaning supplies used as deadly weapons? I think not. Let's look at those drive-in totals and get started here. We have 12 dead bodies, 2 breasts.
2 breasts.
Unfortunately, they are snow breasts. 1 snow babe, 1 zombie, 1 fist fight, multiple neck snapping with fractured vertebrae, goo-face transformation scene, axe down the throat, icicle through the arm, icicle through the head, snow fist face punching, runaway sled head slicing, body part Christmas tree ornaments, blow dryer militia guerrilla attack, 2 motor vehicle chases, 1 snowman rape, FBI eating, CIA munching, heads roll, arm rolls, boot food, mitten foo, blow dryer foo, aerosol foo, ice pick foo, rifle foo, vigilante foo, furnace foo, antifreeze foo. Driving Academy Award nominations for Scott McDonald as the Scarface killer who turns into the demonic snowman who says, well, it ain't fucking Frosty. F. William Parker as Paul the hardware store guy. Christopher Allport as Sam the befuddled sheriff. And Michael Cooney, the writer-director for one of the most original flicks of the 90s. 3.5 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
3.5 stars.
How come every winter it's a snowman and not a snow woman? Nobody ever says, hey, let's go outside and build a snow woman, right? Because, I mean, even though, think about it, ever seen legs on a snowman? No, of course not. Too hard to type. The snowman could also be in a long dress. And hey, you know what? Snow tran. It's not a snowman, it's a snow tran. Because everything on a snow person is ambiguous, right? So you just sit in your front yard and you wait for people to come by and say, hey, great snowman. And you say, how do you know it's a man, bigot? You know, so come on, it'll make the Christmas season festive, you know? It's a snow tran, you ignorant cisgender doofus, you. Because that's what we do. One another how worthless we all are when we use the English language to mean the same thing it's meant for 1,000 years.
Are we really having a party tonight?
That is the second time you've asked me if we're having a party tonight. Yes, I've invited every horror host in America. Well, most of them. I mean, the famous ones. We invited the famous ones. We invited at least 3 horror hosts.
Oh my God, it's going to be so fun.
Okay, yeah, she can't make it this year. She loves me and she loves the show, but she can't make the party. Well, that's okay. We have many other horror hosts available at the next break. And, okay, as we all know, anybody sledding in a Christmas movie has to be decapitated. That's a rule established by the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. I think the original guy was decapitated with an axe, right? But Jack Frost takes it one step further and decapitates the sledder with a sled. That opening happy, scary story with the nasty storyteller talking to the little girl, that was writer-director Michael Cooney, a British guy who was 26 years old when he made this movie. It was originally going to be a $30 million movie directed by Rennie Harlan. But when that deal fell through, Michael Cooney said, well, what the hell? Let's just rent a camera and, shoot it low budget. And so they went up to Big Bear, up in those mountains a couple hours east of LA where 1 million movies have been filmed. And it was 1994, and that happened to be the warmest winter in the history of no snow. They had to fake all the snow. They used foam, they used paper, they used anything they could find. But Michael Cooney is basically a writer. He writes and produces TV series, although he did direct the sequel in 2000, Jack Frost 2, Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman. And the less said about that one, the better. But he's got a weird resume. He also directed many episodes of Center Stage. Now, I don't think anybody outside New York City would know what Center Stage is, but it's just the main announcer for the Yankees, Michael Kay, interviewing random people on a set that looks like it was rented that morning at the Ethan Allen Furniture Store. So with a studio audience of like 12 people. So if I were Michael Cooney, I don't think I'd be putting that show on my resume. Anyway, Michael Cooney does the voiceover for the scary story told during the titles, and he also does the voice of the little girl that the story is being told to. Jack Frost himself is played by veteran character actor Scott McDonald. In fact, every single actor in this movie is a character actor. You should just write the words veteran character actor before every champion who's working in Jack Frost. No stars, just people with 2,000 credits each. But Scott McDonald is the king of them all. He has done everything. He grew up in Libby, Montana. He went to Washington State. Go Cougars! He's a big Cougars fan. Ouch, Scott, I saw that UCLA game. Anyway, he got his master's in acting at the California Institute of the Arts in Santa Clarita, California. Hundreds of LA people have gone there. And then he did the regional theater thing. All the best actors do that. And then his big breakthrough, and I saw this on opening night. I don't know what I was doing there, but he got the lead on Broadway in the Kentucky Cycle. Now, he was outstanding. The play quickly closed because it was one of those things that's 6 fucking hours long. Good grief. You know, and I thought I was a motivated theater goer. It's the story of my people, rednecks in eastern Kentucky. And I still thought it was too damn long. Anyway, Scott McDonald got noticed for that role. And since then, he's just been killing it. He played 6 different creatures and 1 human on various Star Trek shows. You know, that's versatile. On stage, he's been both Hamlet and Bullwinkle the Moose. But in the horror world, this is what he's known for. And what's really interesting to me is he plays Jack Frost as a human and Jack Frost as the monster. Usually that's 2 different actors, but he does all the voices, he does all the physical stuff. Very impressive guy. Anyhow, at the next break, we'll be joined by several of my horror host colleagues as Joe Bob's Very Red Christmas continues. So roll the film. She's just way too busy this year, especially this time of the year, because nothing personal, Joe Bob. You know, I love The Last Drive.
Are you upset?
Of course not.
Then let's get ready for the party.
I'm upset.
Don't be upset.
You know, we go back like 30 years.
It's okay. She loves you.
All right, let's watch the cool snowman movie. I only asked you for a smoke. That line is so bad that I think I have an explanation for it, though. I got to take this because our guest has been delayed at the airport. So, hello? Yeah, same. I hadn't seen you in a while. Okay. No, absolutely not. I completely understand. You got all that Christmas stuff going on in Chicago. Texas is hard to get to. It's always a long shot. So, hey, stay scary, man. I'll check back in a less hectic time for you, Arbor Day or something. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Great. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bye. Well, yeah, you know, horror hosts are busy at Christmas.
They are?
Yeah. Okay. So in the part we just watched, that was veteran character actor Jack Lindine as Jake, the dad with an axe shoved down his throat. And that was veteran character actress Kelly Jean Peters, who was killed with the Christmas tree lights and used as an ornament by veteran character actor Scott McDonald as Jack Frost. All these are TV people. If you added up all the TV series represented by the cast of this movie, you'd probably have 1,000 shows. So anyway, I love the quirky musical tracks on this movie. Kind of country music for children combined with country music for drunks. So the townspeople remind me of a Preston Sturges movie, you know, something like The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, where everybody in town is an oddball. Michael Cooney, the director, is the son of Ray Cooney, the famous writer of British farces. And I say famous, he's not really famous in this country, but he's famous in places where people laugh at British farces. So we'll talk about that later.
So, can I assume that we are not doing the party?
We're doing the party. We're just starting late.
Okay. Did you invite other people?
Yeah, I invited 20, 30, you know, I invited a lot of people.
Do they know what time?
Yes, they know what time, you know.
Wow, someone's grumpy tonight.
All right, just roll the movie.
I'm ready to be pierced by sharp reindeer antlers. Doesn't that make you happy?
I'm thrilled. Actually, yes, that does make me happy. So let's get back to the movie, though, about an ice-cold killer called Jack Frost. Frosty, man, frosty. Who said that? Frosty the dog said that. The Dr. Pepper dog said that. You know how I know that? Because there was always a Frosty dog float in the Cotton Bowl parade. Dr. Pepper was invented in Waco, but they moved it to here in Dallas, so that was the home of Frosty Dog, or Frosty the Dog. We need to look that up and get it straight. But he would say, Frosty, man, frosty.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I'm okay until you ask me if I'm okay.
Oh, okay.
the movie in an orange parka. Actually, I think the same guy plays 6 different characters, all wearing an orange parka. But he's the guy saying those highly inappropriate things like, "You don't reckon we should leave her up for the 12 days of Christmas, do you?" Meaning the head of Mrs. Metzner on the top of the Christmas tree. That actor is not even an actor. It's a guy named Brett Boydston, who was the transportation coordinator on the film, meaning the chief driver. And I think the weird humor of the movie and what makes it popular at weed parties in college dorms is that it's small town America as filtered through a British farce sensibility. Now, how do we know that? We know that because Michael Cooney, the writer-director, is the son of Ray Cooney, the West End Theatre District in London. Ran for 9 years. But Ray Cooney has actually written 17 plays that were produced in the West End. He got his start as an actor in the Whitehall farces of the 1950s and 60s. And we don't have time to go into the Whitehall farces. It's a Brit thing. And does anybody even watch us in the UK? I know we're on in the UK. Yeah, one guy in Scotland.
At least 2.
2 guys in Scotland who watch the show religiously, but I don't think our penetration is that amazing in England. So
Penetration. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt all that. But did anyone else RSVP for the party? Because I'm going to have to go to
we're not doing that.
We're not?
And we're not doing the party.
Okay. Send his regrets. He just found out about it like just now, and he lives too far away to get here.
He wanted to come
Yeah.
to our party?
Yeah.
Well, there is no party. Just get the deer antler stunt set up. We're going to that after the 3rd movie. We'll sing a sad song and then we'll do the stunt, and that'll be.
Why is that song?
Well, they're not really sad songs. They're songs about how sad you are, and then you remember it's Christmas and somebody gives you $5. So
What?
I'm not in the mood to explain how Christmas songs work right now, but just get John Brennan will write us. We'll get him to sing a famous sad Christmas song.
Won't that cost us like $20,000?
I don't care if it costs $20,000.
Yeah, no. We'll just get like a sad cover song. Hey, John,
do you know a sad Christmas song that's in the public domain?
Joy to the World.
Does anybody besides me see what I'm dealing with here? Are you listening, John? The word joy in the title of the song is a dead giveaway. That's not a sad song.
Oh, I can make it sad.
We're not going to make Joy to the World sad. No, that's not what we're doing here, John. This may be the worst Christmas special that I've ever done, and I've done quite a few. Okay, what was I talking about? I was talking about British farce, all right? 3 people in our audience want to hear me talk about British farce. So anyway, in the 50s and the 60s, they had these silly, mindless comedies with mistaken identities and saucy butlers and people eavesdropping behind windowsills. And they would all play at the Whitehall Theatre in London, which is still there, but today it's called Trafalgar Studios. And the actor-manager of that theater was Brian Rix. And Brian Rix would produce these plays with titles like Dry Rot and Simple Spy Men, and One for the Pot. One for the Pot was written by Michael Cooney's father, Ray Cooney. And Brian Rix would act in the plays, and they would be sellouts, but they were considered low class, sort of like this show, And so one of the actors in Brian Rix's plays, Lord Rix, actually, they put him in the House of Lords. He was so popular. But one of the actors in his plays was Ray Cooney, who then wrote a bunch of hit plays while Michael Cooney was growing up. So Michael Cooney grew up in rehearsal rooms with a lot of British wags, as they say. So he listened to a lot of British wagging as they produced these shows. And I think that style of dry but wacky comedy, meaning ridiculous situations but understated in the dialogue, rubbed off on this movie. Get it? Does that make any sense? Okay. Back to the movie. Does anybody even remember Run for Your Wife, the most famous of Ray Cooney's plays? It's about a bigamous taxi driver. He has 2 families. But then he ends up in the hospital, and so he has to shuffle both families around and also deal with 2 different police forces, leading to a series of absurd situations. And Ray Cooney himself took the lead when the play came to Broadway. And of course, it bombed. It closed really quickly because we don't get that kind of humor. We just don't fathom it. And the film adaptation of Run for Your Wife in 2013 is considered one of the worst films in British history, even by the British. And that's a nation that thought Benny Hill was funny. So, anyway, if anything about it resulted in a vicious killer snowman movie, we like it, right?
Yeah.
So, what did I spend there? 5 minutes discussing the Whitehall farces? Yeah, you know who else performed at the Whitehall Theater? You totally don't care by this point, right? But you know who else performed there? Phyllis Dixie. Phyllis Dixie. Anybody know who that is? The greatest of all British strippers, They didn't call them strippers, they called them nude studies. So she was the queen of the nude study girls, Phyllis Dixie. Important British pop culture information that doesn't relate to this movie one diddly squat. Okay, I'm done. Okay, so normally I don't like to get down into the nitty-gritty detail about rape scenes, but since I've never seen a giant snowman rape anybody before, and since this is the scene that launched Shannon Elizabeth's career, speaking of Waco, Frosty, man, Frosty. Shannon is from Waco. We have so many inside jokes buried within tangential references that I'm really getting sick of myself.
I do love the actress, Shannon Elizabeth, my bae Shannon Elizabeth. Still makes movies to this day, although not as popular as in the 90s and the 2000s. My bae Shannon Elizabeth, if you're watching, just hit me in the DMs.
Oh, Waco native Shannon Elizabeth gets offered her very first movie, and her agent says, "No, really, listen to me. Being raped by a giant snowman will put you on the fast track to superstardom." And so she does the scene. But before I talk about that, let's talk about the carrot, all right? When she gets in the tub, the carrot is floating on the surface of the water. As the rape occurs, the snowman has no nose. When the rape is over, the snowman makes a point of putting the carrot back on his face. Did we just see what I think we saw? Because that is weirdly fetishistic. But the snow rape would indeed launch Shannon Elizabeth on a career path that included American Pie, Scary Movie, one of those Jay and Silent Bob movies, I don't remember which one, Dancing with the Stars, before becoming the world's leading spokesperson for the fight against rhinoceros poaching. Yes, that's what I said. And it all started with a carrot and the world's most pissed off snow cone. Okay, let's get back to the movie. I'm starting to get all melancholy and Christmassy. And you know what? At the next break, come on out, John Brennan. John Brennan and I are going to sing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas and make everybody cry.
You're not going to make anybody cry. We're not doing that song.
White Christmas. We'll sing White Christmas.
Nope, not doing that either.
Little Drummer Boy. We'll do it like Bing Crosby did it with David Bowie, all right?
Nope.
All Christmas songs should be free. I hate the commercialization of Christmas. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. We'll sing that.
Can't do it.
Are you telling me people pay royalties got run over by a reindeer? Fortunately, we're going to impale Darcy later. So, all right, John, do you have an impale Darcy lyric?
I'm dreaming of an impaled Darcy.
All right, I guess not.
Have yourself a Darcy on a word.
Okay, sorry I asked. Back to the movie.
Darcy's punctured. Bum.
John, shut up. He's chillin' and killin'. That was the tagline on the poster. And I don't want to presume to understand the science going on in this movie, but I think Jack Frost can only kill when he's frozen. And you can only kill him when he's frozen. Stephen Mendel, the actor playing Manners, the FBI agent, Bad Manners as somebody calls him, veteran character actor. You've seen him in 100 things, but you don't remember him because he's a chameleon. He's totally unrecognizable from one role to the next. He plays good guys, bad guys, scientists, doctors, lawyers, judges, sometimes wears a beard, sometimes wears a mustache, wears a lot of hair pieces, different kinds of eyeglasses, and he always sounds different. He's a master of accents and dialects, so he's in big demand for animation. He does a lot of voice work for video games, audiobooks, radio, TV commercials. He's a singer. He plays guitar. He studies an obscure martial art called Aikijitsu. He teaches scuba diving. I was learning all this stuff about him, and I was thinking, man, this guy's so accomplished, he makes us all look lazy. And then I found the ultimate resume item: sings Celtic music in pubs. Are you kidding me? Stephen Mindell, Agent Manners. So speaking of singing in pubs, I think we came up with one worthy of a beer joint, if not a pub. But, you know, I wanted a grim song, like that Merry, Merry Christmas song that Bonnie Tyler does. But these cheap wimps, they don't have to spring for it. So, see, I told you guys the whole horror community Christmas party thing was not going to work. You know, number of horror hosts so far who say they want to come to the party. One, you know, where was he from?
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, okay. So, number of horror hosts showing up for the party? 0. Okay, let's do the song. John Brennan, ladies and gentlemen, our production coordinator, who ever since he helped us out with Hey Travis Crabtree back when we played Legend of Boggy Creek, he's been burning it up with his series of 45s. John, you're the only guy I know who releases his music on 45s. But the punk version of the Drive-In Oath, that's John. The prom song at the end of the series last season, that was John. Okay, now, John, I ask you to get really, really sentimental, self-pitying, and sad, but from within me, you know, and you tried to do a Joy to the World cover. So I know this is not in the dead center of your comfort zone. So, but together, by sort of like getting sadder than you've ever been a single moment in your life, John, we got to a point where we came up with a sort of crying in your beer, you know, Hank Williams type, lonely. Not Hank Williams Jr., but, you know, one and only Hank Williams. I told him I wanted a song like Long Gone Lonesome Blues, and he did it just in time for the stunning conclusion of Jack Frost. Okay, John, tune it up. Let's stall for time here a little bit. This Jack Frost is not to be confused with the 1998 Jack Frost starring Michael Keaton as a snowman, who was inhabited by the spirit of a dead musician who comes back on Christmas to bond with his young son, Pukarama. No, this is the rapist serial killer Jack Frost, the Jack Frost that God intended. And I still can't get over that thing about Agent Manners singing Celtic music in pubs. What language is that? Gaelic or something. And then he goes home and does some Aikijitsu. Kung Fu is not good enough for him. I actually looked up Aikijitsu when I was researching this movie, and it's so complicated, you can't even pronounce the moves that they make. But I found this one quote that sums it up. It says, the secret of Aiki, that's another name for it, the secret of Aiki is to overpower the opponent mentally at a glance and to win without fighting. Which sounds like you just go around staring people down and they drop to their knees and beg for mercy. So I'm going to guess that would not work in a Texas beer joint. See, some of this Japanese stuff, they assume that your opponent is, number one, intelligent, and number two, paying attention. That doesn't work if he's on PCP and he just came from a tractor pull. So they don't have that possibility in the Aikijitsu handbook. All right. Are you ready, John?
Ready.
This is a little tune called Lonely Red Christmas. I don't need no tinsel. You can keep that Christmas tree. The night is so damn silent, except for all the screams. The only snow I'm seeing is the static on TV. 'Cause this year it's the VCR and me. I'm settling in for a lonely red Christmas, the only color that makes me whole. It's another red Christmas and I'm all alone. The only you I've ever known. See those shadows dancing, my own company. The movie credits roll now as I drift off to sleep. The only sound I'm hearing is a cricket symphony. This year, it's the VCR and me. I'm settling in for a lonely red Christmas. The only color that makes me whole. It's another red Christmas and I'm all alone. The only you I'll ever know. Next year might be different. I don't know. Did you notice all the little insider jokes in the credits? You know, it's great that they kept their sense of humor because it was what they call a troubled project, made in 1993 and 1994, but it didn't come out until 1997. It was an 18-day shoot, and it did not snow up there on Big Bear Lake a single day. The cavalry there at the end, Paul Davro, the store owner who shows up with the antifreeze, that actor was F. William Parker, kind of the ultimate veteran character actor in a film full of veteran character actors, still working today in his late 70s, and I don't mean the occasional walk-on guest role. The man does dinner theater in Kansas. And by the way, that big stunt at the end, the biggest stunt in the movie where the sheriff jumps on the snowman and they fly through the window and land in the bed of that pickup truck, one take for that. Stone, the CIA guy, that's Rob LaBelle. He has 100 credits. And of course, the star of the movie, here's the great irony, Christopher Allport as Sam the sheriff. He was in his early 40s when they made the movie. He'd been in dozens of movies at that point, usually in supporting roles. But the ironic part is that 10 years after this movie came out, he would be killed by snow. He was skiing at the Mountain High Ski Resort in the San Gabriel Mountains, the same mountains where this movie was filmed, and he and two other people died in an avalanche. So, sorry to end on a downer. But on that note, I think we can move on to our final movie of the Joe Bob's Red Christmas triple feature, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, and I'll explain why it's 2 and not the original in a minute, but not before Darcy the Mail Girl joins us. Thanks, Darcy, for taking time. Oh, my God. You are a snowman. Or no, you're not. You're a snow... Oh.
I'm a man.
You're a snow tran.
There you go.
Thanks for taking time out of what I'm sure is intense preparation and rehearsal for the moment later tonight when you will be impaled on reindeer antlers.
You're enjoying this way too much.
I'm loving this, but I'm also loving this new feature that we are introducing tonight.
Yeah.
This will be a regular part of our last drive-in double feature season in 2020, and that is...
the Silver Bolo Award.
Yeah?
It's an actual silver bolo tie that will be given to the winner each and every week.
And what do you have to do to win the Silver Bolo?
The Silver Bolo is awarded for excellence in horror media. It's our way of giving recognition to horror blogs, horror podcasts, YouTube channels, horror sites, whatever, that don't get the recognition that they deserve.
And you're the perfect person to do that because you read all that stuff, you listen to the podcast, you keep up with it.
Well, not all of it. I rely on the mutant family to let me know who's out there and doing really good work.
Okay, well, before you award the first Silver Bolo, I want to point out you're a horror blogger yourself because you've been publishing Kinky Horror, kinkyhorror.com, since how long have you been doing that?
Maybe 7 years now.
Okay. As far as I know, you're still the only blog that reviews horror porn, which was a genre I didn't know existed until you introduced me to classics like The Texas Vibrator Massacre, The Hills Have Thighs,
I was just thinking that.
Halloween. You were supposed to be in that.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
I really
Oh my
was.
God. Halloween Triple X, Wet Dream on Elm Street,
So good.
and
For real.
my personal favorite, Skanknado.
Also good.
Who made Skanknado?
Steve Matthews.
You know the director of Skanknado?
Actually, my favorite of all is Evil Head, which I highly recommend.
Evil Head?
Yes. Evil Dead parody, shock, but it's amazing. So,
All right. I mean, that's not the main thing you do on Kinky Horror. You have everything on there.
yeah, I started Kinky Horror because I was an adult performer, and whenever I talk about horror online, I'd always get comments like, yeah, that's cool and all, but show us your ass. So I made a site to make sure that people knew it was separate from all the other stuff. So it's not just for porn fans. It's for people who cared about horror. And if you're also a porn fan, cool. That's a place for horror.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can attest that Darcy has some writing chops.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. We're going on to the silver bolo. Do we have the actual silver bolo here?
We do.
Yeah, Yuki, here. All right, thanks. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, it's got a Lone Star there on it. Looks like it's made of actual silver. Is it made of actual silver, Yuki?
It will be.
Yay, thank you, Yuki.
All right, thanks, Yuki.
Alrighty, so the very first ever Last Drive-In Silver Bolo Award goes to Dinosaur Dracula.
You talk about that guy all the time,
I love
Dinosaur Dracula.
He's a website that covers vintage action figures, junk food, roadside attractions, monsters, horror movies, wrestling, lots of wrestling.
Okay, I love it.
His motto is that he celebrates the sheer joy of trivial things, and he's been around for a really long time. He also hosts the Purple Stuff podcast with Jay from the Sexy Armpit.
The Sexy Armpit.
Yes, that's another pop culture website.
All right, well, high praise for the very first recipient of the Silver Bolos. All right, we are just moments away from the final movie in our Red Christmas trilogy, and it's good that we're showing this because you can sort of brush up on exactly what you need to do to emulate the famous Linnea Quigley scene in Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I don't think I need any brush ups.
Okay, well, that's a major bra to fill, Linnea Quigley.
She wasn't wearing a bra.
Indeed, she was not, but we're headed for trouble here, I can already tell. I wish I knew some Christmas jokes.
Okay. That brings us to the final movie in the triple feature here on the Red Christmas special with The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob. We are getting ready for Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Just give me 1 second here to take the phone off the charger because the battery should be sufficient enough to get us through this final watch along. We'll set the camera all up here for you guys watching at home. Okay, that's a little bit off center. So let's go ahead and try to fix that. That doesn't look too bad. You got a little bit of the red light in there, a little bit of the green light in there. Let's get some more of that green light in there. Yeah, we like that. Okay. So I am going to take about a 1.5, 2 minute break, and then we will be right back for the final movie here on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, Red Christmas special from season 6, 2019. It is going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. As you can see, the red glare here. You got the green light over there. We're in the spirit of the season. Happy Friday the 13th as well. No better day than to start the Christmas special watch-alongs here than today, Friday the 13th, of course. And we'll be right back. Okay, this is it. The final movie in the triple feature is going to be Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. As I said, I love Christmas horror movies, horror Christmas movies, however you want to describe them. Because me, myself, it is a dream of mine to write and direct a horror Christmas slasher movie. Take a sip of the Jones cane sugar blueberry soda. One of my favorite movies, too, by Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas. Is it a Halloween movie? Is it a Christmas movie? It's both. Perfect for somebody like me. But this is it. Joe, Bob, and the Last Drive-In crew going to be watching and talking about the movie Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2. If you've made it this far in the watch-along, thank you so much for your support and your viewership. Definitely means a lot to me. I appreciate it so much. And this is Joe Bob talking about Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 for the Red Christmas Season 6, 2019 Christmas Special.
Oh,
And happy Friday the 13th.
okay, it's Christmas on the Last Drive-In, and as you all know, or the ones know who have watched all the 347 Christmas shows I've done, we always get a little sappy towards the end. I mean, we do what we can. We don't aspire to the brilliance of the CBS 1987 Claymation Christmas special hosted by the California Raisins. Actually, I think the Raisins were just backup singers. The hosts of the show were the Claymation Dinosaurs, right, Darcy?
You're correct.
All right. And of course, there was the ice ballet with the Claymation Walruses.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, Walry. Anyway, I thought I would address this year's Christmas message to all the government employees and legislators and public officials who have turned nasty over the last few years and keep telling us that we're screwing up and we need to be punished. And since you probably don't know what I'm talking about exactly when I say that, let me put it this way. You know that person in every family, you always end up talking to them at Christmas, that person who just won't behave? And it drives you crazy, doesn't it? There goes Juanita having another baby and she couldn't even afford the first 6. There goes Big Al getting drunk again. You know, if he gets drunk one more time and puts Doris through any more pain, I'm never loaning him another cent. You know, we told Stephanie to stop going out with older guys. She's only 17. She's dating guys in their late 20s. She promised she wouldn't do it anymore, and then what do we find out? There she was last Saturday night at 2 in the morning, parked out behind the Walmart with pig face walls. You know, everybody has family members like this, right? Everybody has friends like this, right? Another version of it is the person who's always telling you that this is the year they're going to fix their life. I really mean it this time. I'm going back to school. I'm starting a new business. I'm not going back to Daryl, no matter what he says. And then they never do diddly squat, right? Just drives you crazy, doesn't it? Or how about your aunt that sits around all the time saying, nothing ever goes right for me. Nothing exciting ever happens to me. Nothing ever happens to me, period. I'm so boring. My life is so boring. On and on and on. You know, until you want to pick the old bag up by the shoulders and scream in her face, get your butt out on the street, lady. Make something happen instead of sitting there like an old piece of underwear on the discount pantyhose table at Walgreens. Okay, so everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? It's the people in every family who keep screwing up. No matter what you do to them, no matter what you say to them, what they say to themselves, what they decide to do for themselves, they just keep screwing up over and over and over again. Well, the government now has a plan for these people. The government is fed up with these people. So that, like that personal responsibility law that Congress passed, if you're a teenager and you don't maintain a C average in school, some states want to revoke your driver's license. And then there's all those Republican legislatures that have even tougher laws coming up. If you're an unwed teenage mother, you can't get any welfare benefits unless you remain in school and live with your parents. If you're already on welfare and you have another child, your benefits might get cut. If you miss a PTA meeting, you might not get your check next week. If your kid is absent from school without an excuse, you can lose your welfare check, and on and on and on like this. Now, let's take a look at this idea, honestly. Doesn't everybody remember a time when Dad stood up and said, if you ever do that again, even one more time, I'm going to cut off your allowance forever? And what happened? You did it one more time. Admit it, you did. And he probably cut off your allowance, but he didn't cut off your allowance forever because he was dad and he didn't really mean it. But these people really mean it. These people know so little about human nature that they don't realize there are people who try to change, who want to change, who are constantly being ordered by their families to change, but they just can't change. So what are you going to do? Cut off all their benefits? Make them even more suicidal? Listen to me. Some people can't hack it. It's not their fault. These are the people we need to help. If the person can hack it, he doesn't need our help. Is this so hard to understand? Yeah, Joe Bob, I know what you mean. I believe in giving people a second chance. But we're talking about people who have gotten into a pattern that goes on for years and years. They never change. They just keep taking money from the government. They don't get a job. They don't take good care of their children. They become substance abusers. On and on and on. What do we do about them? What do you do about the ones who've already been given 6 chances? And here's the Joe Bob Christmas answer to that. We give them another chance. If it's a 500th dad blame time, we give them another chance. Nobody does that on purpose. It infuriates me too, frustrates me too, but nobody does it on purpose. We give them another chance. That is the American way, that is the Christian way, that is the Jewish way, and that is the Islamic way. It's called having faith in people even when they disappoint you, and it's what dad does. We need more dads and fewer vengeance-seeking spinster aunts, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. Okay, now, one person we do not want to give a second chance to is Ricky Caldwell. And actually, I have to explain this. The movie is Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Yay!
Part 2.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. We lost the rights to Part 1, long story. But for people who never saw Part 1, don't worry, because most of Part 1 is in Part 2. People don't remember this today, but Silent Night, Deadly Night was a major banned movie in the 80s. It was banned in Milwaukee, New Jersey, Chicago, Peoria, Fort Worth, just to name a few of the places. The original came out in 1984, and it's the story of little Billy dressing up in a Santa Claus suit and going over to the St. Mary's Catholic Orphanage to kill all the orphans with a meat axe. For some reason, the PTA didn't like that story, so Silent Night, Deadly Night came out on the same day as A Nightmare on Elm Street, November 9th, 1984. It was outgrossing Wes Craven until everybody got their panties in a bunch, because TriStar, the distributor, ran the trailer as a TV ad, and in one market it ran right before Little House on the Prairie, so parents flipped out. Protesters gathered outside theaters. Siskel and Ebert weighed in on it, and so TriStar caved. They pulled it out of release 2 weeks after it opened. But obviously, it went on to become a cult classic. It spawned 4 more sequels. It was remade in 2012. Nobody protested in 2012, although maybe they should have. So the original Silent Night, Deadly Night kicks off with crazy grandpa terrorizing little apple-cheeked Billy by telling him that Christmas Eve is the scariest damn night of the year, and that Santa will punish him. So the next thing, a psycho Santa robs a store and then murders daddy and rapes and murders mommy, while a traumatized Billy hides in the bushes. And little Billy is sent to a Catholic orphanage where one of the nuns wants to get him therapy, but Mother Superior decides to beat it out of him instead and tells him if he's not a good boy, Santa will be mean to him. So, of course, little Billy becomes clinically Santa-phobic. And then 17-year-old Billy is working at a toy store, and he's doing okay until he has to fill in for Santa, and he sees the girl that he likes getting molested by a coworker. That, of course, is naughty. And pretty soon, Billy's making like G.I. Joe and turning people into Tinker Toys. Okay, so here's how Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 happened. The producer of the first one, a guy named Ira Barmack, was pissed at TriStar for ruining his box office when they pulled the movie out of theaters. And he's also kind of offended that he'd been raked over the coals by Siskel and Ebert, who had dogpiled on this movie. They hated it. Siskel called it sick, sleazy, and mean-spirited. So anyway, he got it back from TriStar, and he gave it to Aquarius Releasing. And they re-released it in the spring of 1985, and it did okay. But then in 1986, Live Entertainment, remember them? They released it on video, and it did really, really well. So now Live decides they want to make a sequel, but the original director refuses to be involved, and in truth, they don't really want to actually film a sequel. So a producer named Larry Applebaum takes 2 editors at his company, and he says, I want you to take all the footage from the original movie, scramble it up, make it into a new movie. Who does that? So first of all, the people involved in the making of part 2, they tell that story with a straight face, like it was possible. I mean, part 1 it wasn't big budget, but it was made by the low budget division of a big budget studio, meaning they had enough money. It was directed by Charles E. Sellier, the creator of The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. He later disavowed the film. He said he just did it as a favor. But they went to a little Mormon town in Utah called Heber City, population about 4,000. So it was a location shoot. It was a 32-day shoot, which is long for a horror flick. So the new producers say, well, we don't have the money to do that again. And so they say to these 2 editors, just put a sequel together for us. So Lee Harry, the director, wasn't a director. He was an editor. And he talked to his editing associate, Joe Earl, about it, and they decided to just spend the weekend writing a sequel, trying to use as much footage from the first movie as possible. And when they finished, they said, you know, I'm sorry, but we can't completely do what you guys want, you know, because that would be crazy, first of all. But if you give us $100,000 and 7 days of shoots, we can do it. So that's what happened. They shot 45 minutes of new film. They used 40 minutes from the old film. The theatrical release was May 1987, and the film was universally hated for using all that footage from the first film. Duh! But they hired an actor named Eric Freeman for the lead, and his performance is so out of control, over the top, that he eventually became world famous and an internet meme. And so around 15 years ago, people started searching for him. There was a huge movement called Find Freeman, and it was assumed that he was hiding out to escape the infamy of Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. And they eventually did find him, and we'll tell that history later. But right now, let's just run down those drive-in totals and get into it. This is actually a sequel that you're better off seeing if you did not see the first movie, because most of the first movie is here. We have 23 dead bodies, 9 breasts,
9 breasts,
1 attempted Santa rape, Santa punching, throat slitting, leather strap flogging, 1 car crash with explosion, gunshot to the forehead, multiple dead Santas, child bondage, stomach stabbing, gunshot to the chest, bloody umbrella plunging, exploding eyeballs, snowman hacking, face slashing, axe to the neck, axe to the stomach, Christmas light string strangulation, testicle kicking, deer antler impalement. Are you ready, Darcy?
Heck yeah.
Reenactment coming up later by Darcy. Claw hammer to the head, bow and arrow to the back, gunshot through the garbage can, heads roll, gratuitous child abuse, axe foo, fire poker foo, plate glass window foo, Jeep foo, wheelchair foo. Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Frank Novak as the loan shark who beats up a guy in the alley and says, I hope you don't pay on Monday because I enjoy this too much. James Newman as Dr. Bloom, the no-nonsense psychiatrist number 13. Eric Freeman as Ricky for the one-liner that has been turned into more memes than any one-liner in history. I speak, of course, of Garbage Day. Gene Miller as Mother Superior for saying, very, very naughty. Elizabeth Caton and her 2 enormous talents as the psycho killer love interest, and Kenneth Brian James as Chip, the ex-boyfriend who says, if I knew you could sink this low, I never would have dumped you. 3 stars. Joe Bob says, check it out.
3 stars.
And everything in this movie is blamed on the Catholic Church. Before it was fashionable to blame everything on the Catholic Church. I mean, in France, you know, they've been doing that for years. They've been hacking off the heads of priests and cardinals for centuries in France. They're used to it. But these nasty nuns in this movie are just vicious. they create holiday-themed axe killers by their, brutal orphanage disciplinary policies. And so, and isn't that the point of all these Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, of which there are 5, by the way? Well, that's scary. I never went to Catholic school, but I know that those, did you go to Catholic school? You went to Catholic school, right? Well, those nuns can open up a can of biblical whoop-ass, right? And they can devise medieval tortures involving, tree limbs and pressurized rubber and stuff. So that's what I've heard anyway.
Right? Not exactly right.
All right. They can basically fold you in a flesh sandwich and tell you that you deserved it. And they wear those shoes. You know those shoes that the nuns wear? I blame it on those shoes. You put on a shoe like that, you want to put that shoe up somebody's rectum, I would imagine. I shouldn't be picking on the church, though, because it's Christmas, But come on, there's a reason that Jesus wore flip-flops. Okay, you kind of see what I mean when I say it doesn't matter if you haven't seen the first movie. You're going to see it. That first flashback when Santa attacks the parents is from Ricky's memory as an infant. He's the baby in that car. And actually, they kind of deal with it by saying that Billy, the older Psycho Santa, told Ricky, the baby soon-to-be Psycho Santa, how everything went down. But even Billy is only 7 at the time of that highway scene. So anyhow, does anybody remember a basketball player named Bill Laimbeer? He played for the Detroit Pistons in their glory days. Don't you think Ricky looks exactly like Bill Laimbeer? Just saying, big athletic guy. Laimbeer was a 7-footer, I think. Eric Freeman got relentlessly lampooned for this performance, but I actually kind of like it. I like the way he sneers. Somebody went through the movie and counted the number of times he raises an eyebrow. 130 times. We'll talk more about Bill Laimbeer. Eric Freeman. Ricky Caldwell in a minute. But basically what we got here is a Freeman story with a no-nonsense psychiatrist as an excuse to get the whole first movie into this movie. We got the big set pieces of the Santa Claus murder of the parents, the mean Mother Superior flogging Billy and tying him up, the toy store murders because people are being naughty. So we know that a couple of things set Billy off. The color red, because Santa's suit is red, and people having sex because he witnessed Santa attempting to rape his mom and then slitting her throat. There are 8 writing credits on this movie. 2 for the original characters, the story has 4 credits, and the screenplay has two credits, including Lee Harry, the editor-turned-director who admits he was scared as heck when he walked onto the set the first day and realized he was in charge and everybody was going to look to him to tell him what to do. One interesting thing about the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise is that every single person who worked on it, including the original director, said, A, they were not horror fans, and B, they didn't like the story. They thought it was too violent. And then they made it more violent. Of course, the guy commissioning the sequels is the head of live entertainment, Jose Menendez, who would not live to see the revival of interest in Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 due to his sons, Lyle and Eric Menendez, having an attitude similar to Ricky's. And on that note, let's get back to the movie. Everybody that commits murder in LA is good looking. Have you noticed that? They got personal trainers and makeup assistants and stuff. They have a red carpet down at the Los Angeles County Courthouse. They probably do. Lyle and Eric, they were just like Ricky, studly guys, lady killers. And the reason for killing their mom and dad was something like, we needed more personal space, right? They were too constricted in their lifestyle. They needed better courtside seats at Staples Center. Because have you seen that Mark Jackson trading card? Mark Jackson was a point guard for the Knicks, and on the official NBA trading card, you can see Lyle and Eric sitting courtside while he makes a bounce pass. eBay pulled all those off the site. You can't buy them anymore. I don't know why. It's not like Eric and Lyle got money for being on the Mark Jackson basketball card. I know what it was. They were spending their parents' money after they killed them. That's how they ended up at Staples Center or wherever they went to the Knicks game. Maybe it wasn't Staples Center. Wait a minute. There was no Staples Center at the time. So that would have been at the Forum. But what would really be interesting and make this ridiculous rambling thing I'm doing here make some kind of odd sense would be if the Knicks were playing Detroit at the game where the Menendez brothers were sitting courtside, because then you would have Bill Laimbeer on the same court as the guy who resembles the fictional Silent Night, Deadly Night killer, who is buff and sharp looking and about the same age as the Menendez brothers, who actually spent money from the Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 proceeds to purchase those courtside seats. You see how life is a circle? Or maybe an octagon? I need to shut up, yes. Okay, Darcy, were you paying close attention to the impalement on reindeer antler scene? Because I want us to be absolutely historically accurate.
I've seen that scene a million times.
Okay, then let's go over it. That's Linnea Quigley in the impaled slutty girl role.
I don't think she's slutty. She's just chilling with her boyfriend, checking on her cat.
Okay, well, she gets interrupted from pool table sex. Do you have experience with pool table sex?
Yeah.
You say that like everybody has pool table sex. So you're having pool table sex with your boyfriend, but you get interrupted. We need somebody to play the boyfriend, somebody on the crew who looks good with their shirt off.
Yuki.
So, okay, that's not going to happen. So you go to the front door to check on your cat, but when you open the front door, a deranged Santa Claus grabs you and raises you up over his head and brutally rams you down onto the antlers.
Yes.
Can you do that?
I'm so down for that.
Okay, and the antlers go through your rib cage, very gory, and they splatter blood all over your naked upper body.
Got it.
Only your body won't be naked because Shudder doesn't like us to do stuff like that.
So what do you want me to wear instead?
Oh, we can't see any nipple.
I thought we were going to do the scene exactly as it is.
Well, yes, and I know your whole free the nipple crusade that you have and how strongly you feel about that, but we have children who watch the show, and so...
The children are going to see it in the movie.
Yeah, I know, but...
Okay. I think I have a solution.
You do?
Yes. You won't see a nipple at all.
Okay. Now, who's playing Santa Claus?
I thought you were.
You would let me impale you on antlers?
It's a way to get you in the Santa outfit.
Okay, totally worth it. Okay, sold. In the meantime, I think we finally reached the end of the flashback part of the movie. And by the way, how does Billy find these couples having sex in the first place? How did he know that you would come to the door to check on your cat? Why does he care? Okay, the guys who stole the sleds were bullies, so Billy hates bullies. And he goes to the orphanage because that's where the mean Mother Superior is, and he hates her. But he doesn't have any reason to hate Linnea Quigley.
He's just going house by house judging.
Okay.
That's my theory.
And she's having sex on a pool table and going topless. So, naughty. Punish.
You do that a little too well.
All right, back to the movie. What's your solution for nakedness?
Pasties.
Oh, no. Shudder's not going to go for that. Pasties, they don't cover up enough.
I have really cool festive pasties.
Really?
You're gonna love them.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'll love pasties, and I'm sure the crew will love pasties, and I'm sure men all over America will love pasties, but I can tell you, we have to harness those babies because we got to keep those things under control. Among other things, I'm going to be hoisting you up in a dangerous maneuver. I'm going to be inches from your chest. You could put an eye out. I wonder how many times Ricky says punish in this movie. The theory in this movie is that he's a Pavlov's dog. Whenever he sees something that can be interpreted as rape, he flashes back. Actually, let me correct that. He can't flash back to his own memory, so he somehow enters the brain of his dead brother and uses his flashback to the attempted rape, followed by throat slashing of their mother. And of course, anything red sets him off like a bull in Pamplona, so he gets triggered, and also bullies. He hates bullies. I'm not sure what caused the childhood bully hatred. They don't really establish that very well. But a loan shark would be a bully, I guess. All right, what's with the girl thanking the serial killer for running over her boyfriend, though? She was upset because he was always grabbing her. He was a pig. She calls him a pig, and he admits it. He fesses up. He says, yeah, I'm totally a pig. And so he deserves death, I guess. A fantasy scene for every incel. You know, you guys know what incels are? They're those guys on the internet who believe they will never have sex because all the girls are taken by guys named Chad who deserve to die. That's what they call them, the Chads of the world. They're kind of boyfriend haters. They're also girl haters. They think every girl chooses the wrong guy instead of choosing an incel, because an incel is an abbreviation for involuntary celibate. So they go to chat groups and talk about how unfair dating life is because they never get laid. So this scene is what should happen in a perfect incel world. He paws the girl, he acts like a pig. Sorry, he has to die so that an incel will have a chance to have sex with her. Oh, there were 3 different Rickies in the scenes we just watched. The Ricky at age 10 was a kid named Brian Michael Henley. This is the only time he was ever on film. He's the kid who kept nagging his Jewish mom because he saw those 2 nuns walking down the sidewalk and it freaked him out. And by the way, the friendly nun's solution to Ricky's psychiatric problem is Judaism. We'll just put Ricky with a nice Jewish family and he'll never have to face Santa Claus again. And then the Ricky at age 15 who runs over the boyfriend, that was played by Daryl Gilboa. He was a day player brought in to do the Jeep and the graveyard scene. And then, of course, the loan shark umbrella through the gizzard scene, that was Eric Freeman. So 3 actors, 3 Rickies to show all the stages of Ricky's life. So this is one of those movies from the 80s, and this happens a lot these days, where the film gets totally forgotten, and then people rent it on VHS, they buy the DVD, they start talking about it on the internet, they start posting their favorite scenes on YouTube, and pretty soon you have a cult classic on your hands. And the reason in this case is the performance of Eric Freeman, especially in the scenes we're about to watch. If you talk to the filmmakers, they're amazed. They had no idea. Lee Harry, the director and co-writer, only did one other feature, Street Soldiers, a gang war movie with lots of stunts in it. He was actually originally, he was going to school in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he made a film called Button Button based on a Richard Matheson story that actually won a Student Film Academy Award. And that's what caused him to move to Hollywood in the first place. And then his first real paying job was doing the editing on Hellhole, which was a slasher film set in an insane asylum. This was in the era when slashers were really considered reprehensible. You didn't want to be associated with slashers. But he had moved to Hollywood and he needed the money. And so the producer of Hellhole was Larry Applebaum. And he came up later and said, can you editors take Silent Night, Deadly Night and do something sequel-wise with it? And so they got this minuscule budget. They got a revenge plot script that was kind of thrown together in 3 days. It was just cast, shoot, and run with that thing. And the exam room where Bloom questions Ricky, that was the Veterans Administration Hospital. All these scenes we're watching now, starting with the nuns on the sidewalk and the loan shark, we're in the little town of Sierra Madre, population about 10,000, which is where you go when you want to shoot a so-called typical American town. It's not a typical American town because nothing in Southern California looks like a typical American town. But it's got generic suburban neighborhoods where people will let you use their property for cheap. John Carpenter used Sierra Madre all the time. The cemetery scene in the original Halloween is the same cemetery where Ricky and his Jewish mom mourn the passing of his Jewish dad. And then Carpenter came back to use Sierra Madre in The Fog, Halloween 2. Hundreds of movies have been shot there, going all the way back to D.W. Griffith in the silent era. But they had so little money that they had to shoot really, really fast. So all the locations were what was called hard outs, meaning you rented the place for a certain number of hours, and when it got to be 6 o'clock, you had to be cleaned up and out of there or all hell would break loose. And so Lee Harry remembers this putting him under intense pressure and stress, so much so that he didn't have time to talk to the actors about their performances. Now, Joe Earl, the other editor who was helping him do the movie, the co-writer on the movie, didn't have any qualms about talking to the actors. So he was standing on the sidelines all the time Eric Freeman was doing his scene, saying, bigger, more, crazier. And Freeman obliged him, as we will see shortly. Okay, back to the flick. Oh, boy. I don't totally understand the whole incel thing. Ricky is kind of an incel because once he does get a girlfriend, he's psycho about it. See, that's the problem. If an incel, lucks out and gets a woman in his life, he's going to claw her to death with how clingy he's going to be. Which, and I don't want to do spoilers, but the incel philosophy is I'll never have sex because girls only like bad boys and I'm a nice guy, so the girls hate me. Because they get shot down all the time. Well, here's some news for you. Every male has been shot down like a wounded duck in an Arkansas rice paddy. Isn't that what you do in your 20s? You have a lot of girls say, I'm not interested in you. You're not my type. And then she leaves all her stuff on your dresser. That's how you know you're not an incel anymore. You discover a mascara stick covered in toothpaste and you think, oh my God, she's not leaving. Does that make sense? So incels, be careful what you ask for. And so the romantic part of Ricky's life ends with extremely emotionally supportive cops begging him not to kill himself. Doesn't that save the state a lot of money when the serial killer kills himself? Right after Ricky utters one of the most famous lines in horror film history, Garbage Day! It was actually that one line that probably resulted in the movie being resurrected and worshipped today because literally millions of people sampled that line, made memes out of it, spread it all over YouTube. That led to the Find Freeman movement. Nobody could locate Eric Freeman for a long time. And the rumor is that he was hiding in shame over his performance in Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. He eventually surfaced and was good-natured about it, although he admitted that he was trying to be a serious actor and he just felt he had no guidance from the director. And the director admits he had no guidance from the director. They just kept telling him to get bigger and more deranged. The girlfriend, Jennifer, is played by Elizabeth Kaitan in her first film role after moving to LA. She was working as a receptionist at the same post-production house where the director worked. She's Hungarian. She moved to New York City at the age of 8 and became a model. Got a couple of bit parts in Waitress and Zelig, the Woody Allen film. And then she moved to LA and had a short but very lively career. She was Candy in the Vice Academy series. She was Daria in Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. She was one of the bimbos in Assault of the Killer Bimbos. She was Julia in Necromancer, and probably the role most people have seen, Robin in Friday the 13th, Part 7. And lest we forget, Gretchen Hope in Rollerblade Warriors Taken by Force. Always sexy and chipper in her B-movie roles. Retired from the business in the 90s, got married, works as a secretary for David Horowitz, the conservative political activist. I should also mention James Newman as Dr. Henry Bloom, the psychiatrist. He was a theater actor. He had just finished playing the psychiatrist in Equus during a 6-month theatrical run. All right, that stunt with the car where Ricky fires 3 times and makes the car crash and explode, that was Spiro Rosatos, the one stunt man they had who did every single stunt in the movie, standing what looks to be about 8 inches from that car as it goes over that ramp. So does a little sidestep to get out of the way. Great stunt for having no money. All right, what else? Yuki.
Yes,
Are we ready for the reindeer antler finale?
we are ready.
Okay, the antlers have to handle the weight of Darcy and to precisely puncture her rib cage.
We are ready.
Okay, well, I know Darcy is getting ready for her close-up. And what are those?
For covering up the nipple.
No, Yuki, we can't use those. They're way too small. Those are hysterical, and you should wear them at home, Yuki. But those are not going to work. Shutter will kill us.
No? Oh, shoot.
You're gonna have to cover up her breasts.
Okay.
You guys are all right. Let's just go back to the movie, and I'll get this straightened out. And now for the thrilling conclusion of Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2. What if we just use stunt breasts? for the close-up. Did we ask Shutter about that? See if you can get a message to the head office. What if we use Linnea Quigley's breasts from the movie? Because, you know, sometimes I host movies made in the late 60s, early 70s, and we'll have the cast members at the screening. And those girls, hippie girls mostly from the 60s who were in the exploitation movies of that period, you ask them about it and they're like, what? Who cares? You know, we whipped off our clothes at a moment's notice. They're the least uptight of all generations. And then as you move steadily in time, you start getting, I don't think I can do that. You know, the girl who was in the Jeep scene that we just watched, she flaked at the last minute. She said she didn't feel comfortable going topless, even though it's kind of necessary in the scene because it's supposed to look exactly like that scene on the highway where Santa Claus rips off the blouse of Ricky's mom. It's a trigger moment, but she wouldn't do it, so they had to work around it. Roger Corman would have fired her. He had that stuff in writing in your contract, but you know, breasts just aren't what they used to be. Okay, a few things here. After Ricky kills the psychiatrist, why would the cops invite good Sister Mary to the crime scene? You know, she's the kindly nun who tells us that, unfortunately, Mother Superior has had a stroke. And apparently it's the kind of stroke that creates massive boils all over your face. So you can't tell that this Mother Superior is different from the Mother Superior in the previous scene. But before Ricky can go visit the object of his vengeance, he needs a Santa suit. And so he kills the Salvation Army Santa, played by cinematographer Harvey Jenkins. He's the guy with his face pressed up against the glass. He has to step in because the actor didn't show up that day. Harvey did all the camera work on Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, and he did a good job. It's in focus. I have to say, though, in that final sequence, the Mother Superior puts up a hell of a fight from her multiple wheelchairs. And, of course, they set it all up for Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, 4, and 5, all of which, oddly enough, had much bigger name actors involved. So to sum up, the original came out in November 1984. Was pulled out of theaters due to massive protest. The original studio sold the distribution rights to Aquarius Releasing. They did a spring 1985 re-release. Then Live Entertainment released it on video in 1986. The theatrical release of the movie we just watched was May 1987. Audiences were underwhelmed, which is why the next three went straight to video. Part 3, Better Watch Out, was directed by a pretty famous guy, Monty Hellman of Two-Lane Blacktop fame. And it stars Bill Moseley as Ricky, who has a clear glass dome on his head, making his brain visible. And Robert Culp is in the movie in a Dr. Loomis type of role. It all came out, that one came out in Christmas 1989. Part 4, Initiation, was produced by Richard Gladstein, who would go on to win Academy Awards. But for this one, he hired Brian Usna, who said, you know, I didn't want to do the Christmas thing for Part 4. So Part 4 has nothing to do with Christmas. And in fact, it's kind of a blood feast idea. Clint Howard and his female coven. Yeah, Darcy's a big Clint Howard. I'm a big Clint Howard fan too, but you're obsessed with Clint Howard.
I mean, he's amazing.
And Clint is obsessed in the movie with resurrecting Isis, the Egyptian goddess, in that movie. Maud Adams is actually the cult leader, with special effects by Screaming Mad George, the same guy who did Society. That was released at Christmas 1990, even though it had nothing to do with Christmas. Part 5, The Toy Maker, was produced by Usna, but not directed by him. He hired Martin Kittrosser, a first-time director, to make a sort of weird adaptation of Pinocchio, starring Mickey Rooney as a drunken shop owner named Joe Petto. Get it? Joe Petto? All right. It's about Android toys. So anyway, it's weird that Mickey Rooney would star in it because when the first movie came out in 1984, Mickey Rooney said it was disgusting and, quote, the scum who made that movie should be run out of town. And the reason he said that is that Mickey had been Santa Claus in Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. And who would dare to mean that classic? Okay. The Mickey Rooney movie came out in 19 1991 and put the franchise out of its misery. Oh, I forgot, but the remake directed by Stephen Miller in 2012. No relation to the original at all. Did you see the remake?
I did.
And you loved it?
No, I didn't. I don't always like the remake better.
Okay, thank God, all right. Are you ready for action? Yeah, you told me that you've solved the nudity problem with a very festive bra that you. Oh, is that a bra?
Right? Yeah. I mean, does this make you happy? This good shutter?
I don't know how you're going to put that on, but yeah.
We're going to make it work.
I expect that will make me happy. All right. Is this the lamest Christmas special in the history of Joe Bob Christmas specials?
Oh, no, you've had way worse.
well, nobody showed up for this one, that's for sure. We invited 30 people. Nobody came.
I'm here.
Well, yeah, but you have to be here, so that doesn't count.
I'm here because I want to be here. And Yuki's here, and Austin, and Jordan, and the whole crew.
Yeah, I know. We're all here.
I wish you could see all the tweets and the emails and just the love that's pouring in for you from the whole Last Drive-In family all around the world. Our friends are here.
You know why people one reason people tell sad stories on Christmas is because the Christmas story itself is a sad story. Mary is pregnant, can't find a place to have her baby, has to go to a stable, 3 strangers show up, Arabs. Joseph is freaking out because he doesn't know how Mary got pregnant in the first place. So that's a weird story, right?
But the ending is happy.
Yeah, and that's why Christmas is all about making people feel like they belong when they don't belong. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell a sad Christmas story, and then you have to tell a sad Christmas story, okay?
I guess so.
All right, here's my story.
All right.
Not too many years ago, around Christmas time, when I was knocking around New York City trying to find jobs during the recession, I was flat broke. I've been flat broke several times in my life. And so when you're flat broke, you take the bus a lot. And to take the bus in New York City, you have to have this thing called a Metro card, which is, they will not sell you one on the bus. You have to go to a train station to get one. And you put money on the Metro card, and then every time you take the bus, a little machine by the driver takes the money off and says, okay, this guy can ride. So, and one more setup for this story. When I'm not wearing my bolo tie or my hat or my boots or, it is very, very rare for anybody in New York to recognize me. Mostly because, let's face it, my audience was never that big. I was off the air for 17 years. And especially in New York City, I just don't get recognized.
People think you're Norm Macdonald.
I know. What is that? They see me, Norm Macdonald. Hey, Norm. So one day on 6th Avenue, I walk onto the bus, and it's a very crowded bus, and so I walk into the back door. And when you walk into the back door, you're supposed to fight your way up to the front of the bus and stick your card in the thingy, right? And so as soon as I step on the bus, I reach for my card, and I remember, there's no money on it. And not only that, I didn't even have the $20 to put on there anyway, to fill the stupid bus card. And so I think, well, I got to get uptown for this meeting because I have no choice. I need a job. And I was going to a lunch with the editors of the Wall Street Journal because there was a possibility of doing some writing for the entertainment section of the Wall Street Journal. And so I think, well, I'll just sort of blend into the crowd at the back of the bus, and maybe the driver won't notice. So the bus goes 1 block, and the driver yells, "Hey, you, big guy!" And I realize that he's caught me, and he says, "Pay up or get off!" And everybody on the bus turns around, and they look at me. There's like 50 people. This is a crowded bus. There's like 50 people staring at the big guy. So right at that moment, this guy in some kind of horror shirt, he had a black T-shirt, and I don't remember the movie, but he had a horror shirt on, and he says, hey man, I'll pay your fare. But there's no way, first of all, there's no way for him to pay the fare because you got to have a Metro card. I guess he was going to use his Metro card. But I was too humiliated at that point, for you to follow him up to the front and him pay the fare. And so I got off the bus, and he was kind of trying to follow me, because he felt so sorry for me and kept saying he'd pay the bus fare. And so my first thought was, well, This is the bottom. The good thing about this is I cannot go any lower than this. I'm getting kicked off the bus in Lower Manhattan, not being able to get to my meeting. But here's what makes it a Christmas story. I like to think that that guy was a horror fan who had seen one of my shows. I'm not sure he was, but he had a horror shirt and he was really, really trying to pay my fare when everybody else was trying to run away from me, which makes it all the more embarrassing because then you're like Burt Ward, right? You know, oh, I saw Burt Ward. He used to be Robin. You know, it's one of those things. Okay, well, I know Burt Ward is awesome and you know he's awesome, but people are mean. So that's what what I realized that day, this is the real Christmas part of the story. I know my stories are too long.
No.
I thought those fans will always be there. The film family will always find me. And that turned out to be true because none of those Wall Street Journal guys are even there anymore. And who got me back in the hosting chair? The fans. We did the marathon. The fans showed up. That's why we have to take care of the fans because they never go away. Everybody else goes away. So you're right. Everybody who's tweeting us, those are the real guests at the party. That's my story.
That's an amazing story. But next time, if that ever happens again, call me. I got your back.
Okay.
And we're going to not be able to ride the bus again.
You can't fill my bus card from LA, but thank you. All right, your turn.
Oh, man. Okay. A few years ago, I was living in crappy motel rooms with my small son, and we weren't allowed to leave the room at any time.
What do you mean you weren't allowed to leave the room?
We were kind of like prisoners in the room. There was like tape on the door, so you could tell if we went, to make sure we didn't leave. And
For how long?
Like years. Lots.
What?
Yeah, probably like.
Wait a minute, you're actually imprisoned in a motel.
Well, different ones, but yeah.
Oh, okay, in a series of motels, and
Yes.
you're taking care of your kid in that environment.
Yes.
And he's a special needs kid. Can we say that? Can we say he's autistic, or was that embarrassing? Okay, because he actually helps the show. I've had dealings with Alex. He helps us with research on the last drive-in.
That's amazing.
And he's the guy who, when you went to Italy, he identified Luigi Cozzi on site.
Yes.
Who does that? Who can identify Luigi Cozzi on site? Your son can. He's actually the person who came up with the title Halloween Hoop Nanny.
Yes, he's so proud of that.
Okay, so all right, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
right.
Please.
All right.
Okay, so Halloween always gives me strength and makes me think I can do things. And for me, I consider the holiday season from Halloween all the way to Christmas.
Okay.
So one year I got the strength to like escape from my abusive husband and take my son out of that environment. But then my husband kidnapped my kid for over a year. And I had to search for him and the police wouldn't help. And I finally found him and brought him back. Yay.
Darcy, this is a Lifetime movie already. This is like a 4-hour Lifetime movie already. You know, okay.
I'm not at the Christmas part yet.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So now I'm like, I got a kid and me alone for the first time. I have to keep food in the house, pay rent, pay for all his special needs stuff. And it was completely scary to be in charge. And I started working at this really crappy job at a sock factory.
A sock factory?
Yeah.
Where they make socks?
Yeah.
Like in the, where was
socks.
that?
It's a sock factory.
Okay.
And it didn't make, it was not enough money to take care of us. So I went to apply for welfare.
Where are you?
In South Carolina.
Okay.
So I was standing in the welfare line and it dawned on me that the thing I should actually be doing was go become a stripper. I kind of always thought of doing it before, but my family, it's like a sin and terrible and you'll be a terrible mom if you do that. And I was a scaredy cat anyway about everything. So I didn't even think I could do it if I tried. So I started working at this naked car wash place where just to get used to taking off my clothes in front of people. And
wait a minute, like Bikini Car Wash, the movie?
Yeah, but
you went to a
naked,
yeah.
naked car wash.
Oh, it wasn't just bikinis. It was, you were really.
Well, it depends on how much you pay. But
really?
Yeah. And
so this was
actually get really mad. They'd want you to detail they'd get really mad about the quality of your car wash.
Really?
That's not the point. Anyway.
Well, was that a good job?
I mean, it was way better than the sock factory, but it was attached to a strip club. So at night it was a strip club. So you could go around the corner and see it, and I'd like peek around at the stages and be like, maybe one day.
Yeah.
And then at the holidays, car wash work wasn't so busy. I got the courage to actually go into the club and dance for the first time, and it was crazy. Like, I made more money than I'd ever seen in my life, and I brought home this like mountain of cash and like put it on the bed and showed it to my son, and I was like, look at this, we're okay now, and we're never gonna have to worry again. And he was just so adorable. He like started rolling around in money like Scrooge McDuck style, like, yeah. And so we both did that, and anyway, we were happy. And so the next day I started dancing full time, and we ended up having the best Christmas ever because we were free and not stressed out anymore.
That is a great Christmas story. And
Yeah.
so you and Alex rolled around in the money.
He started him,
like-
but you know, whatever.
that's
He's all about it.
That's a very good Christmas story.
So actually, I'm going back to that same club for just one night to do a feature dancing thing in the spring. It's like a fundraiser. So all the money that we make goes to organizations that help young dancers.
You're going back to the same club where you
My
first,
very first strip club that I ever worked at. We're going to do a fundraiser there.
and you're the feature dancer,
Yeah.
and so I know that charity that you're talking about, the one that
Yeah, it's an amazing charity, and they do great work. So
Okay.
you have to come.
You want me to come to that?
Yeah, you're required to come.
Okay, done. How can I refuse? It's Christmas. Are you ready to be impaled on reindeer antlers?
I've never been readier.
Okay, John Brennan, do you have any music to create a creepy atmosphere so that Darcy can go to the door and check on her cat, unaware that a deranged Santa Claus is on her porch?
I have a 2-hour mixtape with that theme.
Okay, great. Let's do it. Come on.
Okay, let's go.
Wow, that felt good. Which is so wrong.
That was better acting than the entire Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 movie.
Thank you for spending your Christmas with us.
Maybe all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies for that matter, if we're talking Joe Bob and acting.
I'm not sad anymore, you know? John, do you have something you can play that's happy? I feel like we should gather around the bloody antlers and the late Darcy and sing a carol. All right.
I don't want to celebrate the holidays because every year it's all the same. The parties are bad, and that's the truth. Your grandma Ruth only has one tooth. Your Uncle Bob is a great big slob, and your Aunt Lorraine, she's a major pain. The food is stale and the drinks are weak. Below the mistletoe, I see a lecherous freak. Forget about holiday cheer. Joe Bob's drinking some Lone Star beer. Fire up the VCR and host the movie marathon on this very red Christmas. I'd rather be alone, unplug my rotary phone. Very red Christmas. Turn off the schmaltzy music. We'll all do a lot less puking. Very red Christmas.
Naughty! Punish! All the
And that is the 3-movie special feature of Joe Bob Briggs and the Last Drive-In Red Christmas Season 6 2019 Christmas special. Joe Bob watched and talked about Black Christmas, Jack Frost, and Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Thank you so much for being here with me today, for hanging out. It is Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th. And also, Merry Christmas to everybody out there who does celebrate. If you don't, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate around this season. Hopefully, you spend it with the people you love, and you're surrounded by people who love you. That's what's most important. Thank you once again for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. Until next time, peace, God.